Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. This is with regards to the state of emergency response preparedness and disaster management in the county of Nandi. Also, right, looks like the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over.
Honorable Senators, we do have quorum now, so we'll proceed with the afternoon's business. Clerk, kindly call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232, 1B, I hereby present a petition that has been submitted through the clerk by Mr. Francis Otieno, a resident of Pap Oriang sublocation in Siaya County concerning compensation of sugar can crop identified as Siaya/Pap Oriang/428, where he cultivates sugarcane. B, that in June 2021, a contractor under Siaya County's Department of Public Works altered the road connecting Bar Osimbo and Pap Oriang, encroaching on the petitioner's land and damaging his sugarcane crop. That on the 29th of July 2029, the Office of the Chief Officer of the Aforementioned Department acknowledged receipt of the petitioner's complaint regarding the matter. However, no response was obtained from the office regarding the matter. That the petitioner sought assistance from the Commission on Administrative Justice, which sent 5 letters to the County Executive Committee member, however, received no response. That on the 6th of October 2021, the petitioner resorted to enter into a compensation agreement with the contractor, anticipating that the county government of Siaya will compensate him for the damages incurred. That following the general elections in August 2022, there was a change in the office holder of the CECM office, who was appraised of the matter by the Commission on Administrative Justice. That on the 4th of May 2023, a hearing was conducted by CAJ with representation from both the county government and the deputy county attorney. During this hearing, the substantive CECM committed to resolving the matter by developing and sharing a payment plan with the petitioner. That on the 4th of August 2023, the Deputy County Attorney wrote to the CAJ requesting a review of the previous decision made on the matter, citing new information indicating that the county government had not contracted anyone for the road works. That the petitioner was appraised of this new development by CAJ and asked to provide his comments. That in his response, the petitioner argued that the construction would not have proceeded without any consent from the county, and that the county should have halted the works upon discovering the improper procurement processes. Further, an internal memo from December 2022 indicated prior consultation between the chief officer and the county attorney. Therefore, meaning that the contended that the county government could not evade taking responsibility for the damage to his crops. That in the recommendation made by CAJ, the county government of Siaya was directed to conduct an investigation into the matter and provide a report within 60 days outlining timelines towards addressing the complaint in case the county government is found responsible, and that the petition is not pending before any court, constitutional or legal body. That the petitioner therefore pray that the Senate investigates the matter with a view to recommending compensation to the petitioner and recommends the diversion of the illegal road created through the portions of land parcel Siaya/Pap Oriang/428 to a position recognized by the Survey of Kenya map of that area. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 2381, I commit the petition to the Standing Committee on Roads, Transport and Housing for its consideration. And in terms of Standing Order 2382A, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer, which is today, to table its report to the Senate for consideration. The Senate shall thereafter consider and adopt the report of the committee. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025. These are the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Murang'a County for the year ended 30th June 2024, the County Executive, County Assembly, County Revenue Fund, Receiver of Revenue, Murang'a County Assembly, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, Murang'a County Emergency Fund, Murang'a County Education Scholarship Fund, Murang'a County Small Traders Empowerment Program Fund, Murang'a County Agricultural Farm Input Subsidy and Incentive Fund, Fort Beverage Industries Company Limited, County Government of Murang'a, Municipality of Murang'a, Kenneth Matiba Eye and Dental Level 4 Hospital, Muriranjas Level 4 Hospital, Kangema Level 4 Hospital, Kirwara Level 4 Hospital, Kigumo Level 4 Hospital, Kandara Level 4 Hospital, Maragua Sub-County Level 4 Hospital, Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company, Gatamathi Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Gatanga Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Murang'a West Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Murang'a South Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Rukanga Water and Sanitation Company Limited. Then the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Vihiga County for the year ended 30th June 2024, which is the County Executive of Vihiga, County Assembly of Vihiga, County Revenue Fund, Receiver of Revenue, Revenue Statement, Vihiga County Executive Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, Vihiga County Assembly Members and Staff Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme Fund, Vihiga County Education Fund, Vihiga County Trade and Enterprise Fund, Vihiga County Facility Improvement Fund, Vihiga County Sports Fund, Climate Change Fund, Vihiga County Referral Hospital, Amatsi Water Services Company Limited, and the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Bomet County for the year ended 30th June 2024, the County Executive of Bomet, County Assembly of Bomet, County Revenue Fund, County Government of Bomet, Receiver of Revenue, Revenue Statement, Bomet County Assembly, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, Bomet County Staff and Public Officers, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, Bomet County Bursary Fund, Bomet County Education Revolving Fund, County Climate Change Fund, Bomet Municipality, Longisa County Referral Level 4 Hospital, Danai Sub-County Hospital, Sigor Sub-County Hospital, Kapkoro Sub-County Level 3A Hospital, Cheptalal Sub-County Level 3B Hospital, Bomet Water and Sanitation Company Limited. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1. Senator for Marsabit County, the Honorable Mohammed Chute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a request of a statement on the status of construction of boreholes in Sagante, Dakabaricha, and Kituruni in Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources regarding the status of construction of boreholes in Sagante, Dakabaricha, and Kituruni areas undertaken by the county government of Marsabit. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on the implementation status of the borehole projects in Sagante, Dakabaricha, and Kituruni, indicating whether they have been completed or still under construction. 2, confirm whether the boreholes are fully functional and operational, and state reasons for any delays noted, providing the expected timelines for completion. 3, disclose the details of contractors awarded the tender for the said boreholes, including information on the tendering process and the criteria used in selecting those contractors. And finally, Honorable Speaker, 4, state the total cost of each borehole project and clarify how much has been paid so far, indicating whether full payment has been made. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Senator for Taita Taveta County, Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request for 2 statements. I would like to read them concurrently. The first one is a statement on statutory reductions in Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare regarding the status of statutory deductions for employees of Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on remittance by the county government of Taita Taveta of statutory deductions from its employees and indicate any entities that have not yet received such deductions. 2, present a report on the status of statutory deductions from health workers' payments by the county government, particularly following the return to work agreement signed between the Health Workers Union and the county government. And 3, inform the Senate of the measures the county government has put in place to clear all the pending statutory deductions from its employees, as well as a roadmap to prevent future backlogs of unremitted statutory deductions. The second one, Mr. Speaker, is on utilization of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, allocation for Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the utilization of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, allocation for constituencies in Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a breakdown of the annual NGCDF allocation for Voi, Mwatate, Undani, and Taveta constituencies from the 2017-2018 fiscal year to the 2024-2025 financial years, and 2, table lists of A, all projects in the 4 constituencies that were funded by the NGCDF allocations for the specified financial years, indicating the commencement and completion dates for each of the projects and the respective project costs. B, companies that submitted bids for each project undertaken during the period in question, specifying those that won the tender. And C, companies that were awarded tenders under the Access to Government Procurement Opportunities AGPO program. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fernandi. Senator Chirange, any honorable senator holding his brief? Senator for Nairobi, are you holding brief for the Senator Fernandi? You may proceed. He has 3 statements.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I hold brief for the Senator Fernandi, and I'm hoping that the fact that I read them will not deny me an opportunity to speak to the statements. Honorable Speaker, this is a request for statement by the Honorable Senator Cherargei Samson. Pursuant to Standing Order 53.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy on the pending power bills owed by counties to Kenya Power Limited. In the statement, the committee should provide a list of all counties that have unsettled power bills to Kenya Power, indicating the amounts per county and the period the bills have been accrued. Secondly, state the role of Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee on harmonizing and assisting counties to settle power bills and other pending bills owed by counties to other entities. Thirdly, explain the reason that led to the recent confrontation and institutional and clash between Nairobi City County Government and the Kenya Power Company, providing details on the status of resolution of the stalemate and a clear way forward to avoid such altercations and interference of service delivery to the public in future. 4, appraise the Senate on the Kenya shillings 19.2 billion written off bad debts by KPLC and whether there are counties whose bills were written off, further giving details on the additional revenues that KPLC earns from hosting cables on their poles, yet the entity is reporting losses due to poor revenue collection. Honorable Speaker, the second statement by Senator Cherargei. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy regarding the alternative revenue streams for the Kenya Power Company. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an annual breakdown of the revenue earned by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company from hosting fiber optic cables on the electricity poles from the financial year 2021-2022 to date. Number 2, disclose all other alternative revenue streams that Kenya Power is currently exploring to diversify its income. And thirdly, explain strategies being implemented by Kenya Power to address the persistent issue of poor revenue collection. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, request for statement on the state of emergency response, preparedness and disaster management in Nandi County. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the state of emergency response, preparedness and disaster management in Nandi County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an overview of the Nandi County risk management policy. Number 2, state the number of staff currently working in the Nandi County Emergency Response Unit, providing details on the nature and frequency of capacity building programs and refresher training undertaken to enhance the effectiveness in responding to emergencies and disasters. Thirdly, provide details on the operational state of all ambulances and firefighting engines in Nandi County, explaining the many reported instances of ambulance breakdown during emergency response. Fourth, explain why the county government of Nandi has not established emergency response centers outside Kapsabet Town, thereby subjecting residents in those areas without the centers to significant losses occasioned by delayed response. And finally, indicate the level of utilization of the Nandi County Emergency Fund, explaining why the fund was not utilized to compensate traders affected by the fire incidents at Kaptumo and Chepterit trading centers. Senator Samson Cherargei, Senator for Nandi County. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator Murango. Yes, two statements.
Mr. Speaker, standing in for Senator Murango of Kirinyaga County, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the status of purchase of wheat from Kenyan farmers. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a list of all licensed wheat millers in the country, 2, table the Memorandum of Understanding MOU between the Cereal Growers Association and the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development regarding the purchase of local wheat by millers and the price per bag for the year 2024. 3, table a report of quantities of wheat purchased from the local farmers as well as quantities imported by each miller, explaining why the millers did not fully absorb locally produced wheat before purchasing the quotas allocated for duty-free import. And 4, state whether the wheat imported above the quotas attracted duty, and if not, state how much in cash equivalent the government forfeited on duty in the year 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You had two statements. Senator James Murango had two statements. Senator Manzo. In the meantime, let's hear Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for statement on the employment status of Universal Healthcare, UHC, staff contracted by the Government of Kenya during COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the employment status of staff contracted by the national government under the Universal Healthcare, UHC, program during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide the total number of health care workers recruited under the Universal Health Coverage UHC program during the COVID-19 period who remain on contractual terms of service to date. 2, explain the reasons the service of these healthcare workers has not been translated to permanent and pensionable terms, PNP, despite their continuous service, outlining any steps the Ministry of Health is taking to ensure that they are accorded fair employment terms in accordance with the law. And 3, state whether there are budgetary provisions to facilitate their transition to permanent terms, confirming the expected timeline for their absorption into permanent and pensionable employment. Daniel Kitonga Manzo, EBS, MP, Senator for Makueni County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for a statement on the proposal by the Kenya Secondary Schools Heads Association, KESHA, to increase public secondary school fees. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the proposal by the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association to increase school fees for national, extra-county and county secondary schools and to introduce school fees for public day secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, KESA explains that the proposal is based on, among other things, the partial and delayed disbursement of capitation funds, as well as the failure by government to review the capitation allocation to account for inflation. KESHA states that these factors have caused immense financial strain on schools, school management, and pushed secondary schools to the brink of financial collapse, with some considering early midterm breaks to manage costs. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the position of the Ministry of Education on the proposal by Kesha to increase school fees for national, extra-county, and county secondary schools, and to introduce school fees for public day secondary schools, explaining the ministry's assessment of the justification provided by Kesha. 2, to provide an assurance for the continued implementation of free day secondary school policy, which has been key in enabling access to secondary education to thousands of students. 3, explain why the government has not reviewed the capitation allocation per student since 2018 to account for the rise in the cost of food, utilities, and essential learning materials, stating whether there are plans to review the same. 4, provide a timeline for the disbursement of all outstanding capitation funds to secondary schools, outlining actions being taken to ensure the schools remain operational with no disruption in learning, rationing of meals, project delays, or overall deterioration of learning conditions due to the reported financial constraints. And 5, outline the short, medium, and long-term strategies being implemented by the Ministry of Education and the National Treasury to ensure the timely disbursement of capitation funds going forward. Senator Catherine Muma, nominated senator.
Senator Essie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is request for a statement on insecurity incidences in Bomachoge-Borabu sub-county in Kisii County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding insecurity incidences reported in Bomachoge-Borabu sub-county in Kisii County. Mr. Speaker, sir, quite a number of people have been injured following clashes along the Transmara West Bomachoge-Borabu border in Kisii County over alleged cattle theft. The violence began on Saturday, 1st of March 2025, after 3 cows were allegedly stolen from the Bomachoge-Borabu side on Friday, 28 February. Youth pursuing the suspected thieves encountered hostile gangs within the Transmara villages, leading to a confrontation that spread to the neighboring villages. In the statement, the committee should, 1, conduct investigations into the recent cattle ration incidences in Kiango, Nyavitunwa, and Nyagenke areas near the border of Kisii and Narok counties, which have resulted in the loss of livestock for affected families. 2, inquire into the criminal activities that have taken place in the aforementioned areas, including the invasion and destruction of sugarcane farms, which have led to attacks and injuries to residents. 3, state the measures taken to hold the perpetrators accountable for these heinous acts and ensure the safety and protection of the affected areas. And finally, highlight the steps taken by the national government to address the ethnic tensions between the Kisii and Maasai communities, as well as the initiatives undertaken to promote lasting peace in the border areas where ethnic animosity between the two communities has been observed over the years. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the war is continuing and we do not want Chinkororo to come back. Thank you.
Senator Kinyua.
Request for a statement on rampant cases of banditry in Laikipia West constituency, Laikipia County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the rampant cases of banditry in Laikipia West constituency or Moran Ward, Wangwashi area. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state whether the security apparatus in the county is seized of the issue of theft of 8 cows and 30 goats belonging to Mr. Kipruto, and 4 cows and 19 goats belonging to Mr. Francis Dukoi, residents of Ormoran Ward, Wangwashi area, which were later recovered by the National Police Service, NPR, as well as provide an update on the status of investigation. 2, outline the measures and the programs the government is taking to address the socio-economic factors in combating the rampant cases of banditry in Laikipia County. 3, provide a clear action plan and timelines in mopping up of illegal held firearms, driving out of herders who have illegally invaded residents' farms in Ratia area, and strict law enforcement. And 4, outline the security strategies, development programs, peace building, and reconciliation efforts, and the areas of collaboration in addressing the rampant cases of banditry. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we'll do 20 minutes of intervention. Given an opportunity, kindly stick to 3 minutes. The Honorable Wakoli. Honorable Senators, if you have nothing to offer, kindly just move out of the dashboard. It's pretty crowded. Senator Eddie Okech. Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to make brief comments on the 2 statements by the Senator for Nandi on the pending bills owed to Kenya Power by counties and the revenue streams for Kenya Power, alternative revenue streams. Honorable Speaker, I am sure you all remember there was a very embarrassing spectacle in Nairobi just a few days ago, where the county government of Nairobi got into a spat with the Kenya Power Company over unpaid bills. Honorable Speaker, it resulted in something of very petulant action that was taken by the governor or the county government of Nairobi to dump garbage outside the offices of Kenya Power and other premises of the power utility. I am happy that my governor has already apologized to the people of Kenya for that unfortunate incident. But, Honorable Speaker, there are very serious underlying issues, and I'm happy that this statement has been brought by the Senator for Nandi. Number 1, Honorable Speaker, I understand that there has been a long drawn-out disagreement about how much Nairobi owes to the Kenya Power Company. And I am also aware that there have been joint auditing of those bills by both the utility and by the county government of Nairobi. And there is a joint communique that was signed on just how much this amount is. There was an initial claim of about 3 billion Kenya shillings, but after auditing jointly, they came to a figure of 1.8 billion Kenya shillings. Now, of importance, Honorable Speaker, is that out of that 1.8 that is claimed by the utility, the Kenya Power, 1.5 billion shillings is arising out of street lighting. Now, here's a conversation that I want this Senate to help us with, especially here in Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, although this street lighting is termed as a function of the county government, this is admittedly a national security function. And the Ministry of Energy themselves have agreed as much. I sat in a meeting with the CS for Energy, the Honorable Wandai, and he had told me that the ministry has acknowledged that this is something that the national government has to take up as a security function. And in fact, by the time of that meeting, which was about a month and a half ago, he told me that they had already written to EPRA so that this becomes a formal policy that county governments should not continue to pay street lighting bills. Honorable Speaker, the funny thing is that although Kenya Power acknowledges that the bulk of that bill is arising out of street lighting, when you have a dispute with them, they don't go and switch off the street lights. which is also a tacit admission on their part that they know that it is critical for Nairobi to continue to have those streets lit. If you look at the law that exists, Section 5 and Section 6 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act, it is recognized that Nairobi stands in a unique position as a seat of power, as a capital city of the country, and also as a diplomatic hub, Honorable Speaker. And that the national government, although certain functions are county functions, must step in from time to time to be able to support the workings of the county government. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to continue to urge the Ministry of Energy to follow through with that promise and make sure that because this is a national security function, they help counties to be able to settle these bills. Finally, Honorable Speaker, because you limited our time, there is a conversation about sources of revenue, on-source revenue for counties. Honorable Speaker, we have a spectre here in Nairobi where the county government used to host utilities, like they would do those utility lines on the ground. And then if you have your fiber optic cables or data cables you wanted to use, you would pay the county, and it was a very serious source of revenue. We have a situation where Kenya Power says they are not supposed to pay for wayleaves in Nairobi or in other open spaces because the law says that you have to get the consent of a minister, which first of all is ridiculous, Honorable Speaker. You give a county the power to levy rates, and then you make those powers subject to the national government again. Of course, the CS for Energy will never allow Nairobi to levy rates for those wayleaves. But the most critical thing is, Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Power Company then takes up business that was a source of revenue for the county government and tells the service providers who are doing data connections and the others that you can actually put your cables on our power lines, which is essentially robbing county governments of on-source revenue. So, Honorable Speaker, it is a situation that I am hoping, because I also happen to be a member of the Energy Committee, we will have a robust conversation about it. And lastly, Speaker, one of the things that is forgotten in the public debate, that bill, the Energy Act that restricts collection of rates on wayleaves without the permission of the CS, is a 2019 bill. If you look at the 1.5 billion Kenya shillings that Kenya Power says is a debt owed by Nairobi, those debts precede that law. So, Honorable Speaker, how can you tell us that in 2017, for instance, we did not owe Nairobi money for wayleaves? And a final appeal on behalf of the people of Nairobi. The national government institutions in Nairobi have refused to pay rates. Unfortunately, one of those institutions, Honorable Speaker, is this House. The Senate and the National Assembly, Parliament as an institution. All these buildings here in the Parliament Square and the Government Square, they have refused to pay Nairobians rates. As we speak, it's over 100 billion Kenya shillings that we are owed as Nairobians for unpaid rates by national governments. If you gave us that money, Honorable Speaker, we would be able to do a light rail, the equivalent of the one that was done in Addis Ababa, so that all of you can come to work without having to sit in traffic. And I can assure you, we'll make a tunnel stop here so that we drop you at work, Honorable Speaker. You don't have to sit in traffic. So I am beseeching you and the entire Senate, please join Nairobi in asking the national government to pay us this money. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Majority Leader.
Matters that have been raised this afternoon by colleague senators and have been directed to the committees. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to perhaps very quickly comment on two of them. One is on this security issue, in security situation in Laikipia. And Mr. Speaker, I continue to empathize with Kenyans who, out of challenges of security, lose their property. But because it's not in the traditional categorization of what property is, it's not a building or a car or a parcel of land in a prime location in this city, people don't treat it with the seriousness that it deserves. Many times when you see senators bring statements, Senator for Turkana, Senator for Laikipia is bringing, that a family has been robbed of their cattle, Mr. Speaker, it is most of the time their only source of livelihood. And therefore, it ought to be treated with the same seriousness as you would if today you're told that somebody had walked into someone's house or an apartment here in Nairobi and evicted them, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to appreciate that Senator Kinyo continues to speak on behalf of the people of Olmoran Ward in Laikipia County. And this is not the first time that this matter has come to the Senate. And therefore, I hope that the new Vice Chair of the committee, who is seated very comfortably in the House this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is following this conversation so that they treat it with the urgency that it deserves to ensure that Mr. Francis Ndukui and Mr. Kipruto are properly reconnected with their animals, Mr. Speaker, and compensated. Also, Mr. Speaker, is to appreciate the good work as reported in this statement that is being done by the National Police Reservists. Many times, Mr. Speaker, there has been a debate in this country by the usual ignorant gang who speak out of abundance of ignorance on issues that they know completely nothing about, Mr. Speaker, and insist that National Police Reservists are militia. You have seen from the statement of Senator Kinyo, Mr. Speaker, that it is actually the NPR that led the recovery of this animal and continue to keep certain parts of this country, Mr. Speaker, safe. And therefore, I want to continue stamping my voice, like I did when that matter first came to this House in 2018, that the government must continue to keep that service of National Police Reserve working in the difficult parts of this country where you would otherwise struggle to keep police officers, Mr. Speaker. Last thing, Mr. Speaker, is on the statement by Senator Jackson Mandago on wheat importation into the country. We spoke about this last week, and I asked and said, I would wish to understand what is it, Mr. Speaker, that makes these millers want to ignore the wheat that has been produced locally here by our farmers. You know, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately...
Majority Leader, don't comment on the statement by, that has been read out by Senator Newton. He was holding brief for Senator Morango.
Yes.
And he wrongly read a statement meant for Senator Mandago. So that statement remains deferred. It will be read by Senator Mandago when he's in the House. So at that appropriate time, you will make your comments on that particular statement.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'm properly guided. I yield the floor then to other senators.
Thank you. Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make some comments and provide some useful information to two statements. One statement is a statement read by Senator Essie Okunyuri. Mr. Speaker, the clashes in the border of Narok and Kisii is historical. The problem started. This has got nothing to do with cattle rustling. It has got everything to do with land. Way back, there was a gentleman by the name of Oringo from the Kisii community who fundraised a lot of money to be able to buy land, Maasai land, about 10 kilometers from the Kisii border all the way to Kilgoris town. This gentleman disappeared with the money. So the land remained as being owned by the Maasai community. There is also a case in court where the Luo community of Awendo took the matter to court because of a place called Olondare. And in this area, this is the place where the late President Daniel Arap Moi used to cultivate a lot of land there. It's where there is plenty of good land that the Maasai use. The gentleman who went to court from Awendo lost that case from Nairobi, and now that case has been transferred to Kisumu. So this is an issue that these three communities must sit down and agree on, because the land belongs to the Maasai community. The Kisii community wanted to buy land, and then the community from the Luo community on our Awendo side also want to be able to take this part called Olondari. This is a challenge, Mr. Speaker. This is an issue that we have to ask ourselves whether we need to be changing laws when it comes to the issue of acquisition of land. It is a big crisis. So this thing where people are pretending that they are going in because they are following their cows which are stolen, and then they cause people to be killed. I know this weekend 2 people from my county of Narok were killed. They were killed by people who came from the neighboring counties. So this is a land crisis. This is an issue where people want to take land by force. Now, if there is pressure for one community in this country to be able to get land, that is not our problem. That is a problem of the national government. We have so much land in this country which is not occupied by anybody. Those people can be able to migrate and move to that part. But forcing and moving people in in this boundary called Olondare, and also allowing land brokers to be able to bring conflict between three communities should not be tolerated, Mr. Speaker. So when the committee is investigating, let us not go to petty things like stealing a cow. Let us look at the problem. What is causing the Kisii community to move to Narok County to be able to claim land which they were conned by this gentleman called Oringo? You know, and what is causing the community in Awendo? You know, in fact, the problem is this, and I want to tell my sister, Esther. There's a community called the Pusunya. The Pusunya community are cousins of the Kuria community and the Kisii community. This Pusunya community is the one which are trying to say we need this land. They are the ones who donated money. They are the ones who participated in this fundraiser by this fellow called Oringo. So the problem is not the Maasai. The problem is not the Kisii. The problem are the brokers who got the money and disappeared with the money. So this issue of land is something that we must resolve for land, for boundary disputes. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, on that issue, I think it's about time that we change the law. Because even the issue raised by Senator Cherargei on the issue of electricity, it has to go to do with the law. Section 33 of the Energy Act of 2019 bars public entities from charging Kenya Power, where it lives, for its network. The law further says that the entity can only demand the fees with approval from the Cabinet Secretary of Energy. Now, Senator Sifuna said, how do you expect the Cabinet Secretary of Energy to say, now Kenya Power, you can actually, no, Nairobi County, you can charge Kenya Power. Yet, Kenya Power is one of its state department. So the issue here we need to do is to change the law. And the law that I would propose that we change are two laws. One, the law that has to do with land on boundaries. That instead of selling land in the boundaries of counties, let us propose that the communities along those boundaries can lease this land out to people so that that land remain historically to be owned by the community which is domiciled in that area. Number two, we need to change Section 33 of the Energy Act. If, to be honest, Nairobi County is owed billions by Kenya Power. Kenya Power wants to be paid for the electricity of streetlights, which to me I believe is a security issue. And I think the national government has got now to decide. The Ministry of Interior is given a lot of money. A lot of money. The executive is given a lot of money. I don't think the executive will feel the pinch if they decide that we will no longer drink tea, we will pay for security lights. Or we will never entertain people, we'll just do what? We'll pay for street lighting. I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, that there is a program, which is a PPP program, that is budgeted to spend about 10 billion Kenya shillings to be able to deal with this issue of streetlights. Because honestly, for every county, and it's not only Nairobi, my county of Narok, my own village of Eorakule, so every so often you find that the streetlights are off, and it's an insecurity issue. When you ask the community there, they say, we have asked Kenya Power to restore this security light. They said the bill has not been paid by the county government. So who is going to pay? In fact, one young boy from Eorakule asked me, so, Senator, who is going to pay for this? We are afraid of even working at night. We walk from our technical college, called Masai Technical College, a TVET institution, all the way to the center at night after prep, because there's not enough accommodation, and there are no streetlights. So really, my colleagues, I want to beseech you that instead of just looking at the top layer, let's dig inside to find out what the problems are. Let us take the law, let us change the laws, so that we can ensure that the time that God will give us to live on earth, we can live peacefully. Secondly, we can also be able to have the services which other countries have for free. If you go to Dubai, I don't think there's a time that the local authority or the power company in Dubai will decide to shut off power. Or the local authority will decide to go and dump garbage outside the offices of another department. So these are things that requires us to be disciplined, mature enough to sit down and have a conversation. So I look forward for the time that we'll engage both Nairobi County and Kenya Power so that we can have a lasting solution to these problems. Otherwise, we will continue going around in circle. And when the Lands Committee or the National Security Committee is looking at this statement brought by Senator Kinyuri, let us dig deeper to be able to understand historical challenges. The same, even in Laikipia. You know, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to contribute on the Honorable Chute's statement. Honorable Speaker, as you're aware, 70% of this country is arid and semi-arid. And mainly, those areas depend on boreholes. There are no running waters, there are no rivers, most of it. There are only some seasonal rivers that is only used only for 3 months. So much money has been spent by the counties and national government to at least do a hydrological survey to be able to access some subsurface water. However, of late, there's so many contractors that pretend to be hydrologists. There are many of them who don't even have the capacity that have been given the contract. And what they do is actually they apply for the contract and don't meet the specifications. These people, they just dig the holes within not even the specified depth. What happened is that the boreholes in those places go up to 600 meters, 200 meters, at different levels. But however, because of we just wanting to make a profit, they do shoddy jobs. Honorable Speaker, and as a result of that, many boreholes have been drilled and they found that it's dry. There was no enough hydrological survey that was done. There was no technical support, knowledge. These guys don't have even knowledge to drill boreholes. They don't have the equipment, because some of the equipment didn't even make that specification, where boreholes can be drilled up to 400, 500 meters. And as a result, most of the boreholes that have been started have been abandoned. And actually today, as we talk, there's a severe drought in those areas. And most of the boreholes are dry, the rivers have dried, and a lot of money has been spent. And therefore I will request the committee to take serious on this matter and visit the specific areas that the Senator has asked to be found that they find out what happened. Because I'm sure the money has already been paid, the boreholes have been drilled, but there's no water and they look dry. And therefore, I will request the committee to be visiting those areas so at least you can be able to stop this business of giving contract to wrong people who have no even capacity to drill boreholes or do any other specifications. With those feedback, I beg to support.
Senator Beatrice Kenya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this, the statement by the Nandi Senator over unsettled electricity bills owed to KPLC by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, I want to insist that county governments must pay their electricity bills because, Honorable Speaker, we cannot say that other Kenyans should pay their bills and governments that draw budgets and have allocation for the same and go ahead not to pay, we can say should not pay their bills. Honorable Speaker, even if the bills have been accumulated for long, all we may suggest is that through the intergovernmental forums, the CS for energy could constitute a sitting with the CS Treasury along with the Council of Governors, and they find an amicable way of settling the bills. Honorable Speaker, the counties have disbursements every month. They could settle it in a way in which the bills for KPLC are ring-fenced and they could be paid in bits, if not at all once. Honorable Speaker, we know county governments have allocations. Why then would they not be encouraged to pay their bills? The issue of street lights is just a small percentage of these bills, and we all know that the street lights are also subsidized bills. So I want to support because county governments are not only owing these bills on street lights, they are not paying bills on hospital bills and on the buildings that they use and a number of services, Honorable Speaker. All Kenyans pay bills, and so for me it is an excuse that we could encourage county governments not to pay bills. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I want to make a comment on the statement by Senator Catherine Muma over the proposal by Kesha to increase school fees in public secondary schools. Honorable Speaker, we know Kenyans are struggling. I would not support the fact that school fees should be increased, especially for day secondary schools. We are encouraging education for all, and all includes, Honorable Speaker, students and pupils that do not come from advantaged families. And so if fees is increased, Honorable Speaker, we might only go to see a dropout rate that is going up. Honorable Speaker, in some of the schools, we have often seen stories where students even fall out of school because of inability to pay 5,000 shillings. So if the school fees would be paid, it would be increased, Honorable Speaker, I think that would affect learning of students. Honorable Speaker, the statement has given two reasons why the Kesha are proposing that school fees should be increased. One of them is the delay on disbursement and then the non-review of capitation to schools. Honorable Speaker, I want to suggest that it is the two reasons that need to be looked into. If there's a delay in disbursement, all we need to ensure is that Treasury disburses the funds to the schools at the right time and not to punish our people who are struggling. Honorable Speaker, I want to support these statements and to say that schools, that there should be no increase in this current school fees that is being paid in the public schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Alexander Mundige Munye.
Asante Bwana Spika, naunga mkono statement ya Senator Kenywa kuhusu mambo ya ulinzi na mambo ya wizi wa ng'ombe na mbuzi na pia uvunjanji wa mambo ya duka za biashara. Bwana Spika, sio mambo ya Laikipia peke yake, ni kaunti nyingi kama huko Northeastern na pia West Pokot na Turkana. Hiyo shinda imekuwa nyingi katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, na tuko kaunti 47 na zile kaunti haina mambo ya wizi na ng'ombe na mbuzi. Mambo ya kilimo ama mambo ile ingine wakipatiwa hela huwa sinafanya kazi mzuri. Wakati huu Bwana Spika, ningeunga mkono wale kamati itaenda kuangalia mambo ya wizi wa ng'ombe na zile vitu zingine, wese wa kuangalia ndio zile pesa maseneta wanapatia county government siwe sikifanya kazi kulingana na njia ile inafaa. Bwana Spika, kwa sababu hiyo imeleta shinda katika kona zote. Unakuta hata shule nyingi asiwezi enda, watoto wengi wawezi enda shule vizuri juu ya wizi wa ng'ombe na pia mambo ya masamba. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono hiyo statement ya Mr. Kenywa. Bwana Spika, pia naunga mkono statement ya Senator Serengei wa Nandi. Kampuni inaitwa Kenya Power. Mara mingi tumekuwa tukilalamika mambo ya Kenya Power, Bwana Spika, na sisi wanyonge na wale wengine ikifika mwisho wa mwezi unakuta unalipa stima na zile kampuni kubwa asilipi stima. Pia Bwana Spika, kaunti zote 47 huwa inaitaka mambo ya security iwekewe stima na Kenya Power, lakini kulipa imekuwa ni shinda. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, ningesema kufanya upelelezi vizuri. Kwa nini ile kitendo ilifanyika ya Nairobi, ya kaunti ya Nairobi, na ndio ambaye tunajua Nairobi City ndio msasi wetu, alifanya kitendo angeweza kuonekana katika dunia mzima. Unakuta juu ya mambo ya kuwa mtu ameenda kudai bei ya pesa yake, alafu sasa unaenda kwa nyumba yake, unaenda unamfungia nyumba na hakuna sheria kama hizo. Bwana Spika, ni kitendo ambaye kilikuwa ya aibu sana, kwa sababu Bwana Spika, tunajua kumekuwa na shinda hapa na pale, kaunti nyingi asilipi deni.
Senator Alexander Mundigi, Senator Paris is on a point of order. What is your point of order, Senator Tobiko?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Mundigi has said, he has used the term sisi wanyonge. If we say in this house sisi wanyonge, those Kenyans who are really, down and feeling like ni wanyonge, see what they will think we are playing with their psyche.
Senator Mundigi.
Bwana Speaker, Bwana Speaker,
Senator Mundigi, Senator Tobiko, I think the Honorable Senator used that term to just prove his humility in terms of identifying himself with the people on the ground. I don't think he meant to rub the people the wrong way. So I think he's within the parliamentary practices to use that word. Proceed and conclude, Senator Mundigi.
Ningesema kusema ukweli, sisi tumekuja hapa kutetea wanyonge. Kwa hiyo nikiwa nimekuja hapa kutetea mnyonge, hata sisi ni wanyonge, kwa sababu kaunti zote tunapatia pesa, hiyo ni matajiri na walipi Kenya Power pesa zao. Kwa sababu, Bwana Speaker, wakati ile kitendo ilifanyika pale, kuna watu wako pale juu ya mazingira. Kuna magari ilikuwa napitia pale. Pia kungetokea mambo ya watu wa vita, anguna pahali wangepitia. Kwa hiyo tuko hapa tukitetea wanyonge, na wanyonge ndio wanilete hapa ndio watetee. Kwa hivyo sikuwa nimekosa, Bwana Speaker. Ile nataka niseme, kaunti ya Nairobi ambaye seneta wake ni katibu mkuu wa Azimio, alikuwa amesimama hapa akiongea mambo kama hiyo. Ningetaka isipokuwa ni vile ametoka, angekuwa hapa aone vile kaunti yake inafanya makosa, na pia kaunti zile zingine zikifanya kama hivyo, mambo ya ulinzi, mambo mingi, mambo ya mazingira itakuwa na shida. Kwa hivyo, Bwana Speaker, naunga mkono kutengenezwa kamati kuonekane kwa nini kaunti ya Nairobi ifanya kitendo kama hiyo. Na pia nimesikia akisema Senate iko na pesa ya kaunti, iende ikawa anja itisha, lakini wale watu waliitisha pesa ya Kenya Power, halafu sasa unaenda unafunga njia ya security mambo ile ingine. Kwa hiyo, Bwana Speaker, mkura deni ni kulipa. Ningeomba deni ya Kenya Power ilipwe na kaunti zote, na pia sio kaunti peke yao, hata kuna ministry nyingi sana hailipi deni. Kwa hiyo, Bwana Speaker, naunga mkono kuweza kufuatiliwa kuonekane vile wale watu wengine wataweza kuwa wakilipa pesa ya stima. Ni mimi Senator wa Embu County, Daktari Mundigi.
Senator Professor Gender.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to contribute to the statement read this afternoon by the Senator Catherine Muma on the question, Mr. Speaker, of the declaration by the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, KESHA, to increase public secondary school fees. Mr. Speaker, I proceed on a different note because I have information, Mr. Speaker, that at the moment what is outstanding is the payment of Kenya shillings 28 billion, out of which Kenya shillings 14 billion has already been released to the JSS level. And Mr. Speaker, this is in view of the fact that the government, through the CS Finance, John Buddy, pays a capitation of Kenya shillings 1,420 per learner for lower school, that is pre-primary education, which is covered, Mr. Speaker, by sections 14 to 20 of the Basic Education Act number 14 of 2013, and the reduction of the initial sum of Kenya shillings 22,244 paid to secondary school students now stands at Kenya shillings 15,042. The government, Mr. Speaker, sir, has now released 14 billion, and there's a balance. The term is not over, Mr. Speaker, it is only half term. And therefore, the precipitate action, Mr. Speaker, taken by the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association is uncalled for. It is uncalled for, Mr. Speaker, because in the day schools, parents pay up to Kenya shillings 12,000 per year after the capitation is received. And parents, Mr. Speaker, sir, cannot be put under the pressure of adding any further sums because the CS, Finance and Government have indicated that the payment shall be made, Mr. Speaker. This statement, however, is important, Mr. Speaker, because it is important for government to ensure that payments are made within time. And that is because, Mr. Speaker, there has been a delay, and some parents are therefore claiming that money should be refunded where they paid more money, my Lord. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Mr. Speaker, this statement is also apt because it concerns the ordinary parent. And this is not a time, Mr. Speaker, that parents should be asked to dig into their pockets to add more money. The Basic Education Act, Cap 211 of the laws of Kenya, contemplates a level of education that parents can afford. It contemplates contribution both on the part of the national government and of parents from their pockets. And I support this statement, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that it ensures that responsibility by the Ministry of Education is carried at the levels that are set out. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had occasion to visit the CS Education, Mr. Julius Ongamba, Senior Counsel, who is my classmate. You know, I have classmates in cabinet. And Mr. Speaker, these are some of the issues that I raised. And the CS was emphatic that there shall be timely release of capitation funds as contemplated by the guidelines. He also indicated, Mr. Speaker, that he has worked on the model of university funding and that with the assistance of his technical staff, he has been able to wade through all the issues that touch on the education sector. And we hope that the CS will continue to do the good work that he's doing. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, on cattle rustling, the late Senator Cheptumo, we buried late Senator Cheptumo on Saturday. He had worked on a bill on cattle rustling. As the Vice Chair of the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, we shall ensure that we prioritize that bill to see that it sees the light of day so that cattle rustling can be a thing of the past in this country. Cattle rustling, Mr. Speaker, as we can see, is rampant in certain counties, including Pokot, including Laikipia, where we can see the statement by Senator Kinyo emerging. But, Mr. Speaker, even in some counties like my county, in Nyakach, which is the border sub-county with the Senator Majority Leader's sub-county of Kericho, where we've had serious issues of cattle rustling reported, and where we have put a framework where leaders cooperate so that we can deal with this issue of cattle rustling and bring it to an end. We had talked about, Mr. Speaker, in the bill by the late Senator Cheptumo, a framework where we will ensure that livestock is labeled, that livestock is specific to a county to enable any person trace the origin of livestock, so that you cannot steal livestock from Kericho County and transport it to Kisumu County or to Kakamega County. And that way, Mr. Speaker, sir, we will bring an end to the perennial problem of cattle rustling in this country. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we will come back to those statements, but allow me to make the following communication. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting students from teachers from Kiaguthu Comprehensive School and Arumuru Township Comprehensive School, Nyeri County. The delegation comprises of 45 students and 5 teachers who are undertaking a study tour to the Senate. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and wish them all the best during their visit. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon a visiting delegation from Mamangina University College, Kiambu County. The delegation comprises of 15 student leaders and 1 lecturer who are undertaking a study tour of the Senate. Now, honorable senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and wish them all the best during their visit. I will allow the senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for granting me this opportunity to welcome pupils from my county. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, rural schools do not have the advantage that the urban setup have. It is indeed such a moment that at times shape the destiny of small children in their learning process. I would therefore want to take this opportunity to welcome both Narumoro Township Comprehensive School and Kiagodo Comprehensive School in Udhaya, from Udhaya Sub-County to the Senate. I would want to tell them that is indeed in their hands, and every dream they have is varied, that some of us started in such schools and today we ended up here. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be under 1 minute as directed, I would want to take this opportunity to welcome the students and the teachers, and I want to wish them well in their studies. I would want them to urge them to work very hard in school, to be obedient, and to be quite faithful in praying, so that one day they can come and sit here, because this house belongs to those who believe that they have an obligation to take leadership in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join you on behalf of my colleagues to welcome the comrades from Mamangina University College. Mr. Speaker, I hope the students have had occasion to follow what's happened in the House this far. Today is one of those slow days if what they know about Parliament is to be considered. There hasn't been any significant drama or debate, but not to say that that's assured for the rest of the day. But what senators are actually doing is that they are reacting to statements that have been raised by their colleagues on various topical issues. And thereafter, those statements will be shared with various committees to give a response to the specific member on those issues. And that's what we've been doing the last few hours. Occasionally, we do that when there is no heavy agenda ahead of us, not to say that it's not important business. I hope these students, Mr. Speaker, will get to learn a thing or two about their country, how the legislature works, Mr. Speaker, and they should take comfort and encouragement from the fact that many of the leaders that serve in this house began their journey, including yours truly, into leadership during their days as university student leaders. And therefore, I'm happy for the endeavor and the pursuit that they are having in the things that they seek, Mr. Speaker, to learn and understand about this house. I hope by the end of their tour of duty, they will get to full comprehension. I want to challenge them to participate more actively in the affairs of the country, as they have been doing it, both online, offline, in their university colleges, and wherever they can to make this country a better place. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mudama Kavendu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to comment on Senator Muma's statement. Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with this statement because just as the teachers, Kesha, are having difficulties in running their schools, the parents are also having a lot of difficulties because the standard of living in Kenya has gone very high, and standard of living is high for everyone. So if we increase school fees for secondary schools, what are we doing to these parents, and where are they going to get money? What should have been done, or what Senator Muma should have done, Mr. Speaker, is to bring a statement to request for capitation to be transferred to schools in time, so that the teachers can. Mr. Speaker, it is true, all counties must be compelled to pay for their bills. But, Mr. Speaker, we've also seen Kenya Power increasing their rates in a way that nobody even understands, even for the local Mwananchi, that their rates are so high that some people are living now without electricity, and many of the people have turned to solar because they can no longer afford electricity because of the rates that they give. So it should also be checked, even as we tell the counties to pay, the bills should be checked if they are the proper bills that the counties should pay. And I say they should come together and agree on mode of payments, because even as I talk like this, even in Machakos, there are streets without light because it has not been paid. Electricity has not been paid. And so it runs all over the country, not only in your area, Cherenkai. So counties and Kenya Power should sit and agree on how they will pay the bills. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fernandi.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support statement by Senator Chute of Mandera. Mr. Speaker, with the ongoing drought situation in the country, it's very sad that 60 years down the line, we are still discussing non-access to clean and safe water as a country. And there are many millions that have been allocated. Mr. Speaker, there is an agency called National Drought Management Authority. You know, they should be proactive, even the agencies, waterworks that we have. Because if the boreholes are dry or non-functional, you can imagine the Kenyans that they are suffering, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can see, even in Garissa, it is less than 1 kilometer, the water is passing there. There is no water in Garissa. And this is the holy month of Ramadan, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it's very unfortunate that our Muslim brothers and sisters are suffering during this. You go, I saw in Takaba. Takaba, they have a pay bill to fundraise for buying water in Takaba, Mr. Speaker. So, and this is the holy month of Ramadan that our people should be doing the month without lack of water, Mr. Speaker. I saw even the other day we were in Mandera, courtesy of my brother, party leader, Senator Ali Roba, and I was disappointed again that Mandera residents were demonstrating, Mr. Speaker, because of lack of water. Why? Because there are 3 generators, there are non-functional generators, there is no electricity in this holy month of Ramadan, Mr. Speaker. I want to call out the Kenya Power and Lighting Company for this ineptitude, incompetency, and moribunds in service provision. It is not a favor, it is not a privilege that they are doing to Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. I don't support what Sakaja did by dumping cabbage in the KPLC Steamer Plaza. But, Mr. Speaker, if Kenya Power and Lighting Company cannot rise up to the occasion, we will not blame the decisions or the actions that Kenyans take, Mr. Speaker. We were there, and I know maybe also when the majority leader was in Mandera, he was also told of the lack of electricity. And I want to propose to Kenya Power and Lighting, and majority leader, you can tell the energy expert minister, Opio and I, that they can allow the importation of electricity from Ethiopia because it is cheaper and affordable to the people of Mandera and northern Kenya. If Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Mr. Speaker,
Senator, Majority Leader.
You know, Senator
Fernandi, would you wish to be informed?
Nowadays he looks wise. I can
proceed.
As his senior, he has no option, Mr. Speaker. He has to listen when I speak. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to inform Senator Cherargei that Kenya imports significant power from Ethiopia. So what he's asking for is happening already. The only challenge that we have is that to do transmission lines from, I think, the substation closest to Mandera town is quite a significant investment. And that is why over the years that hasn't been done. But during the last visit, and Senator Roba is here, of the president, I think last month, it was agreed that actually instead of having to wait for power from the closest substation, which is, I think, I don't know how many hundreds of kilometers away, that the residents be connected to power next door from Ethiopia, and we pay for it alongside the rest of the power that we import. So Senator Cherargei's decision or proposal is already being implemented, albeit with much delay. It needs to be expedited, especially during this holy month of Ramadan. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fernandi, you may proceed. Would you, just information? Then I'll give you an opportunity. Proceed, Senator Fonandi, to conclude.
Thank you,
your
Mr.
remarks.
Speaker. What Senator Majority Leader is informing, I agree it is happening on the paper, but it is only yesterday that Mandera residents were demonstrating, because Kenya Power has not added an extra transformer, not transformer, the generator. They were supposed to add them so that, in fact, we argued that as the only man begins, the Kenya Power, out of agency, should have added a new generator, but they have not done so. And when we went there, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking from the point of information that they are yet to do anything, the Kenya Power and Lighting, and I want to encourage, now that Majority Leader can engage, direct the Minister of Energy, should just sit with the Minister of Energy and find out what is the problem that the Mandera people do not have electricity. And I think let us connect. I remember Garissa had similar challenges, Mr. Speaker. Let us connect each and every, and I like what the motto of the president, uniting the entire country, Mr. Speaker. Let every Kenyan access the national grid of Kenya Power, so that we are not, when you are in Mandera, you find it sad that Nandi is connected to national grid of power, but the people of Mandera, yet they pay the similar taxes. But I want from the floor of the House and ask the party leader, the area senator, to ask his residents to calm down. He is a co-principal of Kenya Kwanza, just like you. They can sit with the president and discuss at the highest level. They don't need to demonstrate, yet the president has decided to contract the road from Mandera to Isiolo, the 750 kilometers. Mr. Speaker, also finally, on the issue of green energy, I want to call upon the Ministry of Energy. Let us zero rate the issue of solar equipment, solar panels. Mr. Speaker, you remember in the last session, VAT was being included on the importation of panels, solar panels and also other. If we want to encourage, and the President has led us in 10 billion, the issue of climate change, green energy, we must zero rate the issue of solar accessories and solar panels, so that Kenyans who cannot access electricity, Mr. Speaker, in fact, your area, like Kilifi and northern Kenya, we should be using solar energy, because apparently there is a lot of sun in those areas, Mr. Speaker, and even the wind at the moment. Mr. Speaker, and even look at the Garissa, Mr. Speaker, there is no water. And yet the river is just passing across the town, Mr. Speaker. We need to challenge. Let's call governors also, as we call upon the Ministry of Energy to provide electricity. Governors, and I know you did a good job while in Kilifi, governors must be held accountable, Mr. Speaker. I was sad today to see the governor of Wajir, who is the chair of Council of Governors, using 7.3 million to repair a generator, Mr. Speaker. If counties do not do things in line with the law, it is very unfortunate, and I don't know whether Governor Baraza has awakened up from slumber, but Bonnie will tell us in some other day in future. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, he should go and become governor. So with those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support, and as I support Mr. Speaker, I would like to weigh in on the statement that has been shared by the Majority Leader and my brother, Senator Cherargei. I must say I was honored to have the company of Senator Cherargei in Mandera. And Mr. Speaker, this problem that is being discussed has been ongoing for the last 3 years. And the government has been making promises after promises. It's very sad. When the president visited Mandera, 2 generators were brought to back up. And unfortunately, the 3 on the ground are not working. The 2 that were brought, 1 is not working. While the intent of the president is noble and has made commitment for this solution to be realized by Mandera people, but the situation has appeared to be extremely deliberate by Kenya Power, as if the people of northern Kenya are not equals in this country. Because as we discuss the challenges of power in Mandera, and it was there when I was a governor, and we're discussing, and unfortunately it's not a devolved function. It cannot be billed to county government because the provision of electricity is not liberalized. It is monopolistic business run by, the electricity company in Kenya, Kenya Power. And the situation is going from bad to worse. What is very embarrassing in present-day Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and it's very, very disheartening to even refer to, a country that, a region, a town that shares
cross borderline with us, which is literally Bulahawa, with unstable government, a government that is struggling to come to stabilize itself, and the farthest corner from the center of Mogadishu, Bulahawa, has several private vendors, and they have reliable electricity in Bulahawa, such that when Mandera is in the dark and fridges are not working and people are fasting, people of Mandera cross to the border to go and buy ice and buy cold drinks from the other side. It's very, very painful that when you look at Bulahawa belonging to a country that was unstable for 30 years, the resemblance of government is starting to exist right now. That town that is across the border less than 100 meters from our border is able to have reliable power supply. And the country, Kenya, middle income status country, is struggling to provide services of provision of electricity to the people of this country. And we've talked about this, repeatedly. The leadership are at pain, to the level that the leadership of Mandera County are at loggerheads with each other, one blaming the other for not doing this and that, and with the belief that somebody is sabotaging somewhere, yet the responsibility of provision of electricity lies squarely with Kenya Power. One of the 47 counties in this country is without power, and perennially, every year we are discussing this. It's about time for our president, His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto, to take this issue, take the bull by the horn. The noble intent of connecting us from across the border, which is about 78 kilometers from Ethiopia, has been in discussion. But realization of the same is not happening. The problem is persistently there. The people are at pains. Yesterday, there were demonstrations in town. We've tried to suppress it for years. To the extent right now it has become impossible. It is reaching explosive levels within the community where leaders will not have a choice, but because we've kept on telling them, do not demonstrate, we might end up joining them in the demonstration for purpose of realizing, electricity, sustainable electricity supply for the people of Mandera town. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is very agonizing, and I cannot really overemphasize. Last time, we managed to calm the population of that town by telling them the president is coming, solution is on its way, and the generators have been promised. We've met the PS, we've met the CS, and this solution will be resolved and they do not demonstrate. And we promise, if that does not happen, the leadership of that county, including the governor, will join in the demonstration to demonstrate the pain that the public are feeling in that county. I beg to support. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 8, the County Government Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 52 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an Act of Parliament to amend the County Governments Act to provide for specific functions for the Office of the Deputy Governor, the Intergovernmental Relations Act, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at Diego PLC, East African Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and UDV Kenya Limited. Resumption of debate on question to be put.
Now, Honorable Senators, this motion had been debated. Where we are now is for the question to be put. Clerk, can you confirm that we have the requisite quorum for purposes of putting the question? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the bell for 5 minutes. Now, honorable senators, I'll proceed to put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East African Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and UDV Kenya Limited, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Take your seat, honorable senator, as we move to the next. Next order, clerk.
Order number 10, motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of the Hospitality Professionals Bill. Resumption of debate on question to be put.
Honorable senators, I'll proceed to put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of the Hospitality Professionals Bill, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th of December 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order. Next order.
Order number 11, the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill, Senate Bills number 36 of 2024, resumption of debate on division.
We'll defer that particular order. We do not have the requisite delegates to carry out a division. Next order.
Order number 12, the Environmental Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 23 of 2024, resumption of debate on a division.
Similarly, we will defer the particular order for the same reasons. Next order.
Order number 13, the County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2024, resumption of debate on a division.
For the same reasons, we will defer that order. Next order.
Order number 14, report of the Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, resumption of debate on a division.
So for the same reasons, we are going to defer order number 14. Next order, clerk.
Order number 15, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic maize diseases that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Senate adopts a report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic maize disease that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. Honorable Speaker, this is a matter that affected many farmers in the North Rift. Honorable Speaker, this matter affected over 90% of maize farmers in Kericho, Honorable Speaker, and their attempt to seek redress from the county government, from service providers like Apollo, fell on deaf ears, Honorable Speaker. The petitioners acknowledged that there was no effective intervention and measures from national government and county governments to ensure and get alternative crop varieties, and that affected the production of maize in that particular area. Honorable Speaker, despite the efforts to engage the authorities on the pressing issues, the petitioners felt the concerns were not satisfactorily addressed and they had no alternative but to move to this House. Honorable Speaker, the committee acknowledged devastating impact on the maize, lack of adequate support and intervention from both national and county governments, the withdrawal support from development stakeholders in terms of input and sustaining their livelihoods, and the committee also expressed concerns about the potential of this disease in other maize-growing areas in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, having investigated the matter in accordance with its mandate, the committee made the following resolutions and recommendations. 1, national county governments to allocate sufficient funds to assist farmers affected by this disease in Bomet County. Number 2, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock should develop and implement comprehensive strategies for managing and controlling this disease in Bomet County and other affected regions. The Kenya Agricultural Land and Livestock Research Organization, KALRO, should expedite research on the disease and get maize that are varieties and resistant to the disease to farmers in the affected region of Bomet. The Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, KEFIS, to enhance surveillance and monitoring of the disease and promote the adoption by farmers in the county. The Pest Control and Products Board should ensure the availability of effective and safe pest control products in managing the disease. The national and county government should provide farmers with training and service extension services, alternative crop varieties, and finally, the Senate Standing Committee on Agriculture and Livestock and Fisheries should conduct regular monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of these recommendations. Mr. Speaker, sir, the catastrophic maize disease in Bomet poses a significant threat to food security and livelihoods in farmers in this region. The committee's recommendations provide a roadmap to addressing the crisis and ensuring a sustainable future for maize production in Bomet County and beyond. The positive development in Kenya Seed Company. The positive development is that Kenya Seed Company has developed a maize variety that is resistant to maize lethal necrosis disease. I beg to move. I want to introduce request Honorable Cheregei to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I want to congratulate the newly vibrant Senator, Chairperson of Agriculture, the Chairperson of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Senator of Bungoma, Senator Wakoli. I would have expected him, Mr. Speaker, to move it in Kiswahili, because, but to congratulate him for being elected the Chair of Agriculture. And I can see he's beginning with a lot of new energy. In Tanzania, they normally say nguvu mpya, ama nguvu kazi, if your indulgence allows me, Mr. Speaker. And congratulate the Agriculture Committee. Mr. Speaker, the issue of maize and diseases continue to give us challenge. Mr. Speaker, the seeds mostly, even us who are maize farmers from the region I come from, and I know maize is grown across the country, all the counties and even our borders. Sometimes the challenge emanates from the seeds, where the Kenya seed, which propagate the seeds, sometimes are not very keen to prevent some of these challenges, and more so in Bomet, Mr. Speaker, where the Kenya seed should come up with a process of ensuring that they bring seeds based on the climatic condition, the soil or the soil type of the area, the climatic condition, Mr. Speaker, so that the maize seeds and variety that Kenya seeds develop for Narok is not the same for Nandi, is not the same for Bomet or any other, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'm happy that Kenya seed has developed maize lethal necrosis in fight against maize lethal necrosis disease. Even as we say thank Kenya seed for developing a seed resistant, Mr. Speaker, we want to challenge the Minister of Agriculture and even the Bomet County government to compensate farmers. I think this issue of contract farming, compensation of livestock insurance in northern Kenya, we should also extend to farming, especially of maize, Mr. Speaker, even so that we can do compensation. Mr. Speaker, I saw these clashes between Kisii and Narok counties, Mr. Speaker, over border clashes. I have seen a number of acres of sugarcane that has been burned down. Mr. Speaker, we must normalize the compensation. Being a farmer, Mr. Speaker, is very hard in this country. For me, I'm a small-time farmer, and I can tell you the money that you put in farming is not equal to the money you get after harvesting, Mr. Speaker. It is one of the hardest things to do in this country. And that is why the average age of a farmer is 50 years, Mr. Speaker. It means that the farming is never attractive enough to attract young, vibrant people to go into farming, because we need to focus farming into creating agribusiness, Mr. Speaker. Say that the input should be less than the output, Mr. Speaker, so that we can encourage young people. I know, Mr. Speaker, most of the young people, even the guests, your guests that are seated, a number of them are still young, that are there in public gallery, Mr. Speaker. Most of them, your guests today in gallery, are young people. How do we make agriculture attractive, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, I want to challenge, let us make agriculture attractive by introducing both incentives and safeguards. If maize in Bomet, the county government of Bomet through Agriculture Department and then Kenya Seed and the Ministry of Agriculture must compensate farmers of Bomet who are affected by maize lethal necrosis disease. That is one of the safeguards. We have said with the drought that is happening in northern Kenya and across the country through National Drought Management Authority, they should ensure that the livestock insurance, both in Kajiado and other counties, including Samburu, Mr. Speaker, that are being affected by this drought, they must be compensated. And that is how we make agriculture attractive, Mr. Speaker. I had some people, Mr. Speaker, in some function, the graduation in Kaiboi, in my county, telling youth, now you have graduated, go and create employment. I asked myself, as we could not even employ ourselves, we went to the people to get employment. How can we tell young people to get employment, to create employment, if us, we went to the people to get employment? The only way to create and channel the energy of young people, including the Gen Z, is making agriculture attractive. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, because I have 3 points, is the issue of contract farming. And I'm happy the government has registered more than 4 million farmers in Kenya. And I want to thank the President, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, because as we talk, Mr. Speaker, you know, from 15 this month, as farmers of maize, we plant because we expect rain season. I'm happy that the subsidized fertilizer is now in our stores. We are now buying it at 2,500, Mr. Speaker, to use for maize. And I know it applies to all farmers. For example, Mr. Speaker, the only challenge, and I want to challenge counties. For example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we have one in Celia, National Cereals and Produce Board. It is in Masab sub-county. We have one in Chesumei, in Mosoria Township, which is my doorstep. And we have one in Lesos NCPB. But the rest of Nandi, the lower Nandi, the northern towards Kericho, and towards Kakamega, towards Vihiga, Mr. Speaker, they don't have access to NCPB. I want to challenge Minister of Agriculture. You know, Mr. Speaker, my county, under Sang maladministration, Governor Sang maladministration, is an autopilot because he's not seeking for any other term. I would request, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of Agriculture assist us with last mile distribution of fertilizer. You find a farmer we have one in Maraba, you find a farmer all the way from Bogovel or Mombwa, the border of Kericho and Nandi. They have to come all the way to Maraba, Mr. Speaker, which is around 40 minutes to 50 minutes, all the way to come and Big Mbolea. They are using border, they are using Probox. I want to propose and ask the President from this floor of the House, with a lot of humility, to direct the Minister of Agriculture to do last mile distribution of fertilizer to farmers, even in Wazingishu. Because my farmers in Nandi, you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, a farmer has to come all the way from Tabolo or Kamungei, where I was over the weekend after we interred our beloved colleague on Sunday, Mr. Speaker, after we left Baringo. They have to travel all the way to Celia, and there is poor, pathetic of road network, Mr. Speaker. If there was a county, and I want to appeal to other governors, because my governor has left everything under autopilot, he is busy with bad governance. I want to appeal to other governors. Can we do last mile distribution of fertilizer to the farmers? Mr. Speaker, I want to thank, in seconding this motion on the issue of Bomet, I want to Kenya Seed, Mr. Speaker, they had brought prices. For example, 2 kilos of maize seed, they were selling at 700 shillings. I'm happy the directive of Ministry of Agriculture, through the guidance of the President, we are now buying 2 kilos of maize seeds at 420 shillings to between 400 and 420 shillings, which will allow farmers, Mr. Speaker, to plant during this planting season. But I want to appeal to Kenya Seed. If they know March, the beginning of rains, Mr. Speaker, if they know that we are expecting, Mr. Speaker, rains, they should prepare themselves and propagate enough seeds to allow us, Mr. Speaker, to plant in time. Because, Mr. Speaker, what is happening, the reason, Mr. Speaker, the reason there was expensive seeds, Mr. Speaker, is because Kenya Seed was not propagating enough seeds. And I'm saying the way we were discussing about the issue of electricity. If Kenya Seed does not have the capacity and ability to produce enough seeds for propagation, either maize seeds, either beans, either any type of seed, then we liberalize the progression of seeds, Mr. Speaker, but not only by Kenya Seed, but we can open up. The reason Kenya Power can take years to even to respond challenges that are there across the country, or even Mandera or anywhere across the country, is because they are monopoly. But if today we have to open Kenya Power, open Kenya Seed, you will allow more sector players, there will be fair competition in the market, and therefore I want to appeal to Kenya Seed, even as they have made the prices affordable for farmers, they should ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the seeds that are in the market are of good quality, so that we don't have maize-lethal disease that can affect our farmers, Mr. Speaker. And therefore I want to challenge Kenya Seed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the third point I wanted to make is I'm bringing an amendment, a legislative intervention. Mr. Speaker, when you look at all the cereals, and I'm happy the government is mopping 32,000, bags of wheat in Narok. And the government is mopping more than 32,000 or 34,000 bags of wheat in Narok, Mr. Speaker. Why is it that wheat, maybe, Mr. Speaker, maybe you'll inform me later. Mr. Speaker, why is it that wheat is 50 kilos, beans 50 kilos, potatoes 50 kilos, I'm told in Nyandarua, Mr. Speaker, Ndengu is 50 kilos. And I heard somebody was being referred to Ndengu farmer, and he felt very bad. If I'm referred as a cattle farmer, I don't have a problem. I don't know why people have a problem of being called Ndengu farmer. If you call me Mufugaji, I don't have a problem, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, if all these are 50 kilos, why is it that it's only maize that is 90 kilos? And I hope the consumers of ugali, like Senator Moses Kajwang, can be fair to us, Mr. Speaker, through you. Because, no, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang cannot lie that he's eating spaghetti, but from his physique, he is the beneficiary of ugali, Mr. Speaker. He cannot lie. He must have maize. So, Mr. Speaker, why is it 50 kilos for all cereals? But when it comes to maize, it is only 90 kilos. And we want to amend. And I am aware Narok plans a lot of maize. I am bringing an amendment. All cereals be 50 kilos. Why is it that it's 50 kilos on other cereals, but when it comes to maize, it's 90 kilos, and we are not getting a good price of 3,500, Mr. Speaker? Yet, Mr. Speaker, when you farm in Narok the way I'm farming, you must lease the farm. You must get a tractor, Mr. Speaker, which is expensive in terms of fuel. You must dry to avoid aflatoxins. You must go to National Cereals and Produce Board, Mr. Speaker. When you come and sit about the maize, Mr. Speaker, you don't get value. And that is why when you go to farmers in Kericho, Nandi, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega, and Wazingishu, Mr. Speaker, and even Meru, I know you just plan for consumption only. But when you come to the market, it does not give value, Mr. Speaker. What we are saying, and I agree with the petition as I second, Mr. Speaker, that Kenya Seed has an honors, Mr. Speaker, has and in legal terms, they have a duty of care. Senior Counsel Senator Mungatana will tell you this, Mr. Speaker. They owe a duty of care that when they are propagating seeds, they must propagate seeds of high quality so that we don't come up with maize-lethal disease that will undermine and threaten the life of a farmer, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you today, as we go to farming in North Rift, most farmers cannot farm because there is no resources to go to the farm, Mr. Speaker. And even here in Narok, Mr. Speaker, it is the biggest challenge that we must rise up against at the occasion, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let us support all farmers, from wheat, from maize, from tea, so that we can ensure there is food security. And I'm happy, under the subsidy program of the President, the affordable seeds, Mr. Speaker, the sufurias that were on the many people's heads in 2022-23 have come down, and they are now being used to cook ugali in most of our homes. And nowadays, even looking at the smile that Senator Kajwang has been smiling for the last 2 years, is because of the good quality of maize, that whenever he goes to Kishagi and ensures, Mr. Speaker, and I want to advise my chair and Senate Majority Leader, because I normally see him playing football, that don't eat sifted maize. Go and get the real maize, go to the normal posho mill, and eat the ugali of posho mill. This issue of eating shifted maize by these other companies might not give you the necessary energy to play football and play football at night, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. and also our cows, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to second this motion and agree with the findings of the committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. The issue of maize disease in Bungoma, in Bomet.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic maize diseases that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. I can see a few senators want to contribute to this motion.
All the members here are not on my screen. Senator Alon Cheriot, Majority Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I don't know. Oh, okay.
Just 1 minute, kindly. Before I give the floor to the members, honorable senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from PCEA Gong Hill Secondary School, Kajiado North constituency in Kajiado County. The delegation comprises 2 teachers and 48 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Senator Seki, under 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also take this opportunity to join you to thank the school from Ngong, PCA Ngong Hills, for finding time to be with us today. I know this is a school that I know. I understand the performance of the school, and Ngong town has been a long historical town in our county and in the entire nation. And we really thank you for finding time to be with us this afternoon. Senate is a renowned parliament, which is a higher parliament. It's a parliament that legislates issues of education in national and counties. And I know you learn much more as you continue to have this great time with us. Otherwise, you're most welcome. The teachers, the students, and I know we'll have more interaction outside there. I'll come and greet you na kupiga picha kidogo. Otherwise, thank you very much, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you. Majority Leader.
Line there. For a long time, Mr. Speaker, how can he be called to reply before we have debated?
He's not replying, but
I thought you moved majority. Okay.
You know, Senator Mungatana arrived from South Africa. I guess that's a problem. I suspect he didn't get enough sleep while there. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this report in reply to a petition by Amidst. I really want to read his name, then I'll say why, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Kerich Kiprono Hillary, a resident of Bomet County. I don't know exactly where in Bomet. But, Mr. Speaker, as a House, we must continue to show appreciation to citizens who believe in the power of this House to resolve issues that affect them. And when a citizen petitions this House to consider a matter that they find to be grave, we must always remember that they are exercising a constitutional power that citizens of this country enjoy, the right to petition public institutions, one of which is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I must confess from the onset that I'm not a very big fan of maize farming. I find maize farming to be one of the activities, economic activities, that has impoverished my own people. In fact, when I speak in public, I encourage them to diversify, grow sufficient maize for their own food, because you can never separate Kenyans with ugali, but also divest and grow other crops that are high income generating, Mr. Speaker. But because they are Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, who draw their livelihood from this trade, I will be measured in my comments. I have said this many times, Mr. Speaker, that you know, these people who roam around the streets of Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, demanding that the price of unga must go down, Mr. Speaker, that they must also be taken back to the farms to understand the challenges that maize farmers go through. You know, by the time farmers are petitioning the Senate because of the prevalence of a disease such as this, then their fellows here seated You know, these online keyboard warriors that are so many in Kenya, making noise, oh, the price of unga must come down, without realizing that for the price of unga to go down, there is a farmer who woke up very early in the morning, plowed their farm, prepared it, Mr. Speaker, and now have to sell that maize to a miller who will prepare unga, then they can go and buy in the supermarket, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, we must continue to respond to the issues that are raised by our farmers, because this country is sustained by a working agricultural economy. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I am not certain of the exact percentage, but I know that there is no employer larger than the agricultural sector combined in this republic, Mr. Speaker. That when our farming communities are happy, the country is largely happy. When our farming communities thrive, Mr. Speaker, the country thrives. And the converse is also true, that many times when our farmers are facing difficulties such as this, Mr. Speaker, then it is difficult to keep the population happy and held together. I must appreciate the time that the Agriculture Committee took, including meeting with officials from Ministry of Agriculture, KALRO, KEFIS, Mr. Speaker, Pest Control Producers Board, who gave their submissions and their thoughts on this menace that has affected the people of Bomet, Mr. Speaker, and I believe in other parts of the country. And the committee is leading this House to recommend to county governments on the things that they need to do, as well as national government, Mr. Speaker. Many times, on the floor of this House, we've had people speak and say, oh, you know, agriculture is a devolved function. Why do you have money that remains at the national government? It is because we need to sustain institutions such as this, Mr. Speaker. Not justifying the huge figures that are left there, Mr. Speaker, but remember, if we don't properly resource our research institutions, Mr. Speaker, our disease surveillance departments at the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate, Mr. Speaker, and the coast and the Pest Control Board, Products Board, Mr. Speaker, then we run a risk as a country. If this was to be left to our county governments to individually deal with this, Mr. Speaker, we may easily run into trouble. Yet, Mr. Speaker, I still find it difficult that many of our county governments do not have either a liaison, Mr. Speaker, or a way through which they interact with these institutions so that they can domesticate unique challenges that are county-specific, Mr. Speaker, and find a way of interacting. Because this is one matter, Mr. Speaker, that these institutions on their own cannot address. They will need the support of the county governments, Mr. Speaker. And you would expect that our county governments, Mr. Speaker, must find a nexus through which reports from all these three extremely important agricultural institutions, Mr. Speaker, can interact with our counties at a better level and ensure that they send information in advance, Mr. Speaker, so that county governments react in good time and farmers don't end up losing the crop, as has been the case in Bomet County for the last 12 years. And therefore, I appreciate the fact that the committee is urging the national and county governments to allocate sufficient funds to assist farmers affected by this ML&D in Bomet County, Mr. Speaker. And it's something that I hope that despite the fact that this is a petition that was sent by an individual resident, Mr. Speaker, that this report, perhaps through the office of their senator, can find its way to the office, to the county assembly, Mr. Speaker, so that as members of the Bomet County Assembly do their budget, they set aside some funds to respond to this menace. Of course, working alongside the expertise of KALRO, KEFIS, and PCPB, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they respond sufficiently to this particular menace, Mr. Speaker. The PCPB, Mr. Speaker, is also being urged to ensure the availability of effective and safe pest control products for managing the various vectors of this disease, and to ensure that the national and county governments provide farmers with training and agricultural extension services. Many county governments, Mr. Speaker, I know there are challenges of funds and resources, but rarely do you find county governments actually hiring a requisite number of agricultural extension officers. Yet, Mr. Speaker, if you have good extension officers in the various parts of the county, then it means your own farmers, Mr. Speaker, live a decent life, Mr. Speaker. They earn better from their farming, Mr. Speaker, and are able to respond to the economic, to issues such as this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope that one day the Committee of Agriculture, and I don't know where the chair is, Mr. Speaker. Oh, he's in the House. I've just noted that the distinguished senator of Bungoma, Mr. Speaker, who is almost to get alongside Senator Mungatana, and of late, the last few weeks, Mr. Speaker, including my good friend Senator Moses Kajwang, are among the top attendees in this House. Even on many afternoons, Mr. Speaker, when the House is virtually empty, you'll find them here following proceedings, Mr. Speaker, and making their contributions. And we must celebrate such members, Mr. Speaker, who take the time to follow the things that happen in this House. The point I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that Senator Wakoli, you must lead this House in establishing, for example, how many agricultural extension officers exist in our devolved units, Mr. Speaker, so that we are told Narok, they have 50, Homa Bay have this number, Mr. Speaker, in your interactions with county governments. Why is this necessary, Mr. Speaker? Because it points to county governments that have placed agriculture and the success of farmers, Mr. Speaker, at the core of their business, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, I know it's not possible to provide, let's say, to a village, but at least a serious governor must ensure that every ward is covered by at least one or two agricultural extension officers, Mr. Speaker, who can move around and have a near personal relationship, Mr. Speaker, with the residents of that particular county and be the people that feed into the agricultural policy of that county, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, you will end up with governors, Mr. Speaker, or devolved units that don't react or respond to issues such as what is being canvassed in this petition and defer back to the old order, imagining that disease control and surveillance is a function of the national government, Mr. Speaker. Yet, it is expected by our constitution that our county governments, Mr. Speaker, will provide the ways and means through which our county governments can respond and react to matters such as this. And therefore, I hope, Senator Wakoli, you will lead this House, because you have already handled one too many petitions of various citizens of this country who are reminding us of challenges that they are facing. And it's not just about maize, as is the case here. It includes so many other crops. It includes livestock farming, Mr. Speaker, where citizens are left to battle on their own, Mr. Speaker, with no intervention from either the county or the national government. And you must be able to lead this House in establishing a nexus through which, Mr. Speaker, national and county governments collaborate for the benefit of our farmers. I have already pointed out, Mr. Speaker, that it is not possible for Kenya to achieve a thriving economy if our farmers continue to suffer, Mr. Speaker. And the easiest way through which this country, Mr. Speaker, can have a better and more thriving economy, Mr. Speaker, is if we support our farmers, as has been the case of late, Mr. Speaker. I must appreciate, this is not a complaint, Mr. Speaker, that despite the things that we are talking about lately, including even the wheat problem that we were talking about a few minutes ago, Mr. Speaker, it is on account that we have supported our farmers to produce sufficiently, and that we celebrate, Mr. Speaker. Now we must do the next step, which is to ensure that we secure and lock the market for them. Then we will have completed the equation, Mr. Speaker. Our farmers will be happy, and they will go home celebrating that their leaders have responded to their needs. If you see the production, Mr. Speaker, in almost all crops in this country today, you talk about tea. For the first time today, Mr. Speaker, in 2024, we sold tea worth 215 billion Kenya shillings. That has never happened in the history of this country. It is on account of the fertilizer subsidy program, Mr. Speaker, and of course the fact that God was extremely favorable to us and we had good weather condition in 2024. Our coffee is on an upward trend, Mr. Speaker. I saw a tweet from somebody who's a keen follower of the Nairobi Coffee Exchange that for the first time in history, that exchange actually went into the night and into the second day people bidding because of good production. I was at a public function in a place called Majimoto in Kipkelion West Sub-County, one of the top coffee growing areas in my county and in the Republic of Kenya. And when one of the farmers took to the mic, though we were at the funeral of a gentleman who had been unfortunately murdered, Mr. Speaker, they appreciated government for one thing, that because of the interventions that have been done in the coffee subsectors, Mr. Speaker, that they are beginning to see better prices. They are now earning 100 plus, things that were history in the past, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we were in Kakamega, and the farmers are urging us, Mr. Speaker, that make sure the supply of this fertilizer and urea, which they use, Mr. Speaker, to grow their cane, is available and present, especially at this time as we anticipate the March long-range season going into April, Mr. Speaker, so that they can thrive and they can do better. I must appreciate those interventions that have been done by this administration, Mr. Speaker, because for the very first time in a long time, Mr. Speaker, rural agriculture is working. And it is on that account that even our food import bill, Mr. Speaker, is reducing. I hope there can be something to report about it from every part of this country, Mr. Speaker, because I don't believe that there is any part of this country that you cannot find something that will make the citizens to put their hands to and have a rural economy that works for them. And therefore, when a farmer such as this gentleman, Mr. Hilary Kerich Kiprono, Mr. Speaker, points to us of the challenges that they are facing in the maize growing area in a small region, it will lead the Senate of the Republic of Kenya into a broader conversation beyond just this issue in Bomet County to find ways through which we ensure that rural agriculture works, Mr. Speaker, and many of our citizens continue to earn. It is a shame of monumental proportions, Mr. Speaker, for us to continue importing food, yet we know that every time a ship docks in Mombasa with wheat, with sugar, with rice, that with maize, Mr. Speaker, that is a farmer of another country that you are empowering to the detriment of our own farmers, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I want to challenge this House, Mr. Speaker, that we must come up with regulations on this power that we gave to our ministers, Mr. Speaker, to issue waivers on importation on any food that is grown by our citizens, Mr. Speaker. Be it sugar, be it maize, be it wheat, Mr. Speaker, Parliament needs to take a decision on this particular issue so that when I vote to allow importation of maize into the country, I must retreat back to Londiani and tell my farmers in Londiani why I have allowed that maize importation, Mr. Speaker. Ledama must be able to stand in Narok town and see the wrath of his wheat farmers and urge them or listen to them, Mr. Speaker, before taking that decision. Otherwise, when you leave it to be a power to be exercised by the executive alone with no significant checks, Mr. Speaker, you find yourself with a situation such as what we are dealing with the wheat farmers presently, Mr. Speaker, where farmers have had a good crop, the stores are full, then importers are applying to be allowed to import wheat from Ukraine, from Russia, from all these other parts of the country with no justifiable reason. That cannot be allowed, Mr. Speaker. The government cannot be investing the billions that they're investing in the fertilizer subsidy program, Mr. Speaker, only for farmers to die with their crops in the stores. We must assure a market for them, Mr. Speaker. And you know, the challenge that we have, Senator Ledama, I don't know if you know this, alongside the senators that you're listening, is the fact that the milling industry in this country is controlled by a very small elite group. 3, 4 to 5 people can sit down on a table and take a decision for the rest of all our farmers and say, we are not going to buy unless the price drops to a particular ratio. And that will be the case. We must increase competition, Mr. Speaker. Government must ensure that they provide the proper motivation to other players in the milling industry to ensure that even small-time milling farms can crop up in our smaller towns, Mr. Speaker, so that these big milling companies, Mr. Speaker, that continue to ignore our farmers and our farmers have to sell their crop at their whims, Mr. Speaker, becomes a thing of the past. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I celebrate the industry of this committee. I hope we can draw the lessons. I want to challenge Senator Wakoli together with all the members of the Agriculture Committee that this is just a pointer to a broader problem. that while this response here responds to the calls that have been made by Mr. Hilary Kiprotich, Kiprono, Mr. Speaker, we must see this in the broader context of the entire country and what we need to do, perhaps to establish the issue of disease control and surveillance in the country, and ensure that each of these national government institutions, Mr. Speaker, have presence in our counties, at least, and have the support of our county governments, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that our farmers continue to earn better. And the same can be said almost of all other industries, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I almost thought I was replying, so Senator Mungatana was not very far from the truth. I thank you. Madam Speaker, I noticed the change as I was concluding. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, there is a communication from the Chair about visiting teachers and students from Light Academy, Nairobi County. Honorable Senators, I'd like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting teachers and students from Light Academy in Nairobi County. The delegation comprises of 5 teachers and 50 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. To give an opportunity to Deputy Speaker, Senator Kathuri, to also welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to welcome our visitors from Right Academy. Right Academy, Nairobi, in Nairobi. We have 2 Right Academies, one in Nairobi and the other one in Mombasa County. So, Madam Speaker, this is one of the progressive schools that we have in this country. I want to report that also my son is a part of this delegation, who is in Form 4. And Madam Speaker, I want to really appreciate their performance in last year's KCSE, because they were one of the top schools in both Nairobi, the school in Nairobi and the school in Mombasa. So I want to encourage them, even the Form 4s that are currently pursuing their elevations. I want to encourage them that they should really follow the footsteps of their brothers who left last year. And also to advise them that those who want to pursue their career in politics, this is a very, very good career. And those who want to fit in those shoes can be able to do that. I know my son is a bit skeptical whether he can join politics, but also I wish him well wherever he wants to go in future. But I want to really encourage the school, the teachers are here, 5 of them, that we are really happy for your visit. And I know you are also from the National Assembly. You have learned one or 2 things during your visit. The members who are not in this house, of course, are in the committees and doing other Senate work. They are not asleep or at home. So they are out there doing other duties pertaining to the Senate. So I want to thank you very much, Dean, for your visit, and all the best in your academic work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, may I start by congratulating the Honorable David Wakoli, the new Chairman of Agriculture. Madam Speaker, this is one of our growing stars in this Senate, and I'm so proud of him. Madam Speaker, he has been an extremely useful basketball player for this Bunge, and his discipline and dedication, Madam Speaker, I'm glad to see that it has been translated to this Committee of Agriculture as chair. I'm proud of him. As a first-term senator, Madam Speaker, he has done well. And I really thank the people of Bungoma for bringing him here. Madam Speaker, this report is a sad report, and it's an indictment of the attitude that over a long period of time we have had to our farmers. Madam Speaker, the petitioner who has brought this matter here, Mr. Kiprono Hillary, he has brought it to the Senate because he has tried to deal with government agencies, the various government agencies for assistance. He has tried to do all other things, and they have failed. And he has resorted to the Senate. Why? Because for 12 years, they have been suffering from this disease. This disease, the maize lethal necrosis disease, has plagued these farmers for the last 12 years. They said, Madam Speaker, in 2011, in Longisa Division in Bomet County, they noticed a plague that was killing their maize crop. They gave it a local name, Coriot, to try and describe the problem because they could not really know what it was. And in the vernacular, when you translate that word, it means plague. They could not explain what was happening. Madam Speaker, it then spread to higher altitude of Bomet County, and it went further even to the neighbors, the neighboring counties. Madam Speaker, 12 years it has now reached this Senate. In 2012, now 90% of the crop in Bomet failed. And now it became very serious. They looked for help in the government, the national government, the county government, and the attitude has not been supportive. So they have landed here. Madam Speaker, this problem of this maize disease is a reflection of what has happened. And I'm really saying this because even in my county, Madam Speaker, our farmers have not received the kind of support, and in particular the maize farmers in Bura irrigation scheme, they have not received the kind of support that they would expect from their county government. Madam Speaker, our farmers continue to suffer, and there is no proper response. Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, that our farmers, despite all the effort they make, they still don't have any form of active allocation from the county government in Bura irrigation? It's like they don't even belong to, they don't even deserve to get any support from the county government. Madam Speaker, we appreciate what the national government is doing in Tana River to support these farmers. We appreciate the visit that His Excellency the President made, in fact, last Thursday, and dealing with the irrigation issues, the availability of water for the farmers. But Madam Speaker, Kenya Seed, while all of us here in the rest of the county are celebrating that fertilizers prices, we've been able to drop them from 7,000 to 2,500, Kenya Seed in Tana River County in Bura, they buy the same fertilizer for 2,500 and they sell to farmers 4,700, Madam Speaker. And it's a government agency, Kenya Seed. And you know, they give these farmers this fertilizer and then they cut them when the harvest comes. So farmers are ending up wondering, why are we not making money? Because it's like some sort of a loan, and then later on they cut the money they are supposed to pay these farmers. Another example of lack of support for local farmers. Madam Speaker, this petitioner, Hillary, has said that in the fight for saving their crop. They have not had support. And
is his time up? Is it? System is. How many more minutes does he have? Senator Mungatana, you have 14 more minutes. The system is working up, is faulty. Please come to the dispatch table.
Speaker, may I? Yes, thank you. So, I was saying another example of lack of support for our farmers, and I'm focusing now in Tana River County. You'd find, Madam Speaker, the loans that were advanced to them by AFC, and later on other loans that were given by Equity Bank, they have left almost all the farmers on CRB. They now cannot even go and get any more loans to support the next crop. Just like these farmers in Bomet, Madam Speaker, that because of the lack of support, private individuals or money that comes in, to help them start working comes from commercial sources. And then when they fail to pay because of the lack of support from county government, Madam Speaker, they are left with CRB. They are left with loans. So what am I saying? I'm saying what the Senate is saying through this Committee of Agriculture and through the adoption of this report, may the executive and our various county governments put more effort in supporting our farmers. This is the biggest employer across the entire Republic of Kenya. May we put money where it's going to support our farmers. And I wholly agree that one of the recommendations here says, let us give money or loans or whatever to support these Bomet farmers to start again. And them, they're looking for loans, which is okay. But for Tana River farmers, Madam Speaker, we are urging that the national government steps in, because this is just about 103 million Kenya shillings for all those farmers in Bura irrigation scheme, that we have made this request, and we hope that this request will be carried out, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, that these farmers' loans will be waived so that they are given a fresh start. In Bomet, they should be given support to start again. Because, Madam Speaker, when you've lost all your crop, you've really lost everything. Crop insurance, it's again one of the recommendations. Madam Speaker, a lot of work goes into preparing the land, into buying inputs for the farms. If anything goes wrong, rains are delayed, or for us, water from irrigation is delayed, or is dried up, or machines break down, then we lose a whole crop, Madam Speaker. And if this should happen, and there is no crop insurance, then it's a total loss to these farmers. So, Madam Speaker, Senate is saying, and I repeat, that we need to support our farmers more. We need to put more effort, especially financial effort. We need to bring crop insurance to our farmers so that they can survive in these tough economic times. I want to take my seat by congratulating Mr. Hillary for bringing this petition before the Senate. And I thank again the Committee of Agriculture for the work they have done. And it is important for us to realize that without farmers, Kenya is sunk. This is the biggest employer. This is where we should be putting our money. And it's an indictment on this Ministry of Agriculture at the national level and our various ministries of agriculture and county level that for 12 years now that we've not been able to help the farmers of Bomet. And the risk is that disease is spreading to other parts of the country. So I fully support this report, and I pray that as we endorse this report, as we accept this report, as we vote in support of this report, the various agencies that have been mentioned in this report, and they were called before the committee, those agencies, they'll be able to effect the recommendations of the Senate and help the farmers of Bomet, as well as farmers in other parts of this country. I support this report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this report by the Committee on Agriculture. Madam Speaker, as I support this report, I want to appreciate the diligence of a young Kenyan from Bomet who has actually educated us on what is going on in this country. The reason why we have seeds which are prone to diseases is simply because of failure by our institutions to perform their work. We have an institution called KEFIS, Madam Speaker, which is supposed to provide a service. It is also supposed to regulate seeds in this country. But it appears that for 12 years, a disease has attacked the basic, in fact, the food that sustains this economy. And for those 12 years, they have done nothing about it. To a point where in 2021, Madam Speaker, Bomet County lost almost 90% of its maize crop. And yet we have institutions that collect billions of shillings to be able to ensure that our farmers are protected. Madam Speaker, these are the kind of things that make some of us propose legislations to be able to separate some of these tasks that they are given. And I want to tell the Honorable Kenyan who brought this petition that this petition will not just go like any other petition. Because, you know, most of the time when Kenyans come and petition here, just because you're given the right by the Constitution to petition, it is quite seldom that action is taken, or whatever the recommendation we give are fully implemented. But this is one of those petitions, Madam Speaker, that is actionable, that the ones that we can be able to implement because it touches on our own existence. If you tell the people of Rift Valley that they cannot be able to grow maize, and I had my good friend Emel saying that because of all these disadvantages and because of all these challenges, he's now telling his constituents to try and diversify. I understand where he's coming from. But as a farmer like me, I have to grow maize, because apart from feeding my own family with the maize and my community, I also have to feed my cows with that maize. But the truth of the matter is that I cannot feed my cows with maize that have got a disease, because I'll pass that disease to other people who are not even there. So what is the neatest thing to do, Madam Speaker? The Committee on Agriculture has done its task. All the distinguished senators who spoke here have also supported this committee and emphasized on the findings of the committee. Agriculture is devolved. It is about time that county governments ensure that their field officers across rural homes to guarantee that the seeds which are sold by Kenya Seed, the seeds which are sold by all these agrovets are certified. Madam Speaker, within the next few weeks, I'll be introducing an amendment to the Seed and Plant Variety Act. And this is the Plant Variety Act, and I'll be seeking to introduce a standard-based seed registration system to facilitate timely approval of seed varieties. Madam Speaker, the problem we have now is that KEFIS is headed by a cartel, Madam Speaker. When you find basic seeds approval process taking years, Who are we protecting? We are definitely not protecting the farmers. We are protecting people who introduce seeds here, maize, beans, and do not want any other variety to be introduced that can be able to adjust to the different changes of our climate. Madam Speaker, my bill, which is already now being sent for pre-publication, will deal with these issues. And I was so happy when I read this report, because it is like we're intertwined. We were sitting down with the Committee on Agriculture and looking at the things, the prayers. If you read the prayers of this petitioner, it's very simple. They're saying, number one, please make sure that any seeds which are sold for maize are seeds which do not have any diseases. Madam Speaker, when I introduce my bill, you will see that I've taken that into consideration. Because it is now imperative that we now try to separate. Because a lot of seeds that comes into this country are coming either from abroad. We have KEFIS, which should provide a service. But I'm a firm believer that KEBS, which is fully equipped, can be able to ensure that the seeds, the certified seeds, are actually good for this economy. Because the problem is that when you have one government entity that is tasked by approving seeds variety, inspecting those seeds varieties, believe it or not, there's always room for mischief, because they know they are, quote unquote, the alpha and the omega. They are the ones who make all the decisions. So it is time for us to listen to what is happening on the ground, to make sure that any seeds, varieties that are sold in this country, are seeds that, one, are clearly labeled, and you can be able to follow them. And we should actually now ensure that whoever sells any seeds that have got some form of disease, they pay. The petitioner is seeking a form of support, compensation. You know, we need to encourage, we need to educate our farmers that there are insurance policies that can protect their crops. Madam Speaker, we are all farmers here, I believe. The distinguished senator from Bomet, Council Hilary Sigei, recently harvested his wheat. But because we had a crisis in the country, all he did was to store that wheat until we find a situation where we can be able to sell. And all that was brought by the fact that when this Council of Ministers are sitting down, they don't really have a picture of what is happening on the ground. So decision that is affecting our people is not made locally, it is made elsewhere, so that our people continue to suffer. It is important, Madam Speaker, that now, before any seeds are imported from outside the country to be used locally, we encourage innovation to be able to develop local seeds. Number two, before any wheat is imported, we make sure that there is absolutely no wheat in this country. Before any maize is imported, we make sure that there is absolutely no maize in this country. Because I dare say, Madam Speaker, that sometimes, because of business interest, some people will try to sell seeds that will ensure that there's a shortage of maize in the country so that they can be able to import millions of metric tons into this country. Because we are a consumer economy, we must now change to becoming a producer economy. We should be producing and selling. It is a shame, Madam Speaker, that now, because of all these challenges that we're facing in the wheat sector, Kenya is only producing, listen to this, Madam Speaker, out of the 100% wheat consumed in this country, the wheat that we produce in Narok, in Uasin Gishu, in Nyandarua County is only 5 to 8%. Yet, the millers here cannot even mop up that 8 to 5%. They will still go and import from outside the country. As we speak today, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy, let me really appreciate the work of the new Cabinet Secretary in charge of Agriculture, Mutahi Kagwe, because he was able to listen and to see where the problem is. And he said, guys, I know you have 260,000 metric tons of wheat in the pot. But guess what? My farmers in Narok, my farmers in Wasingishu, my farmers in Laikipia have got about 320,000 bags. You need to go buy all those bags first before you can be able to be given approval to offload the ship. You can pay the demurrage as you wish. They're all crying. But we just have to be our brother's keepers. We have to make sure that we protect the people who give us an opportunity to serve them here. So this gentleman, Hillary, from Bomet, should awaken our desire to help uplift the standard of living of our people. And this should actually be very dear to all of us. It should be something that we take seriously. Because if those people are not happy, trust me, you are the ones who will get all those phone calls saying, help us. So, Madam Speaker, it is imperative, and I'm happy that the committee is fully recommending, that one, the Ministry of Agriculture must develop a support mechanism for these rural farmers. That support mechanism cannot be left only to the Ministry of Agriculture. It also has to go down to the county governments. I'm happy that all of us are thinking that we should introduce more field, what are they called? Field technicians. Agricultural extension officers. But as when we were growing up, it was fun being a kid in this country. Because you will find these agricultural field officers coming. In fact, back then, when we were growing wheat, you would go to school knowing that there's a crop here, there's somebody already coming to buy that crop. So even if you don't have school fees, the fact that you have a crop in the field gives you a ticket to an education. Now, nobody is sure of what they plant, whether they'll be able to harvest it. Madam Speaker, you should have seen the frustration and the anger of those wheat farmers in Narok. When I attempted to talk to them and ask them, guys, what's going on? They were like, where were you when we were suffering? Little did we know that we have things that we must now ask ourselves on how we educate our farmers. Because the biggest problem we have is that we are not educating our farmers. When in Nyeri County farmers are complaining about tea, coffee, unless the distinguished senator from Nyeri goes there and educate them, to tell you the truth, maybe the county government may not invest in educating those people. So since we have this national platform, let us ensure that the decisions we make here are decisions that will trickle down. Madam Speaker, this house is a house of union. It unites the entire 47 counties on issues that are affecting our people. I was listening to the distinguished senator from Tana River talking about the compensation of the farmers there. You know, I think the way we are busy drumming up support for SHA and the way we are saying we want universal health care is the way now we should now start drumming up support for food security. In fact, I wish the National Assembly would be listening to this, because we should now be encouraging industries to be established in rural areas, and we waive 100% taxes for innovation, because that is the only way. Madam Speaker, if you have industries across the 47 counties, you will encourage more people to develop new seeds, to be able to grow crops. There's absolutely no reason as to why I should be buying maize from Mombasa. Unga ya ugali from Mombasa, yet I'm growing maize in Narok. How many people are in Narok, Madam Speaker? Over 1.4 million people. That economy in itself should be able to figure out how it can be able to sustain itself. And the only way to sustain itself is sometimes it might behoove us, and I'm glad that the distinguished senator from Bungoma is listening. it behooves us now to think about how do we devolve all these services. If it is a seed inspectory service, let's take it to Bungoma. Let's take it to Narok. Let's take it to Bomet. So that immediately we realize that there is a disease which is affecting seeds. Action is taken locally. But now, if you go to Karen, or is it Kajiado County, and to go to Kefis there, before they send somebody to the ground, maybe you might be asked to give, fuel, for them to be able to send somebody to go and actually, look at the disease. And this is not only in crops, but it's also even in our livestock. Madam Speaker, did you know that for them to test these pesticides, and not only pesticides, these parasites, the ones for spraying cows, they will go to Transmara County. That's where they'll do all the testing. So if you have a cow in Bungoma County that has got a tick-borne disease, if a new parasite has been brought that can be able to help solve that problem, unless the testings are done in Transmara County, in Kilgoris, there's no way you can be able to use that parasite. So I think we need to divorce ourselves from this old mentality and control and bureaucracy and open the field. So I hope that, as I conclude, that the Agriculture Committee will support my bill once the bill is tabled, because it goes into the core of this petition, so that at least this Parliament can be remembered as having solved the problem of that maize disease. Finally, Madam Speaker, I think it is time that Kefis mop up all the seeds, maize seeds, which are causing that disease. There's no way you can have one seed for 12 years. That disease is brought every year, there's something wrong with it, unless there's somebody protecting it. So, Kenya Seed and all these other companies that are selling seeds must now look at that seed. Well, now, I think, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of seeds is coming from Kitale. But I'm not seeing those diseases in Kitale. I wonder what is going on. Is it the pesticides that we use that is causing those diseases? Because maize seeds are grown in Kitale. When they come there, they are certified that they are good. But once they are planted in Narok, in Bomet, they have diseases. Is it the pesticides? Is it that we have really corrupted our soils to a point where any crop you put, it just dies? Those are the questions that we must ask ourselves. Otherwise, I fully support this report, and I hope that the Agriculture Committee, even though we don't have an implementation committee, will follow through to make sure that all your recommendations, which are sound, can actually be implemented. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator for Bomet, Wakili Hilary Sigei.
Madam Speaker, let me begin by appreciating the chairperson of the Agriculture Committee, the Honorable Senator Wakoli, who has moved this report this afternoon, together with the rest of the members of that committee, particularly those who were involved in the investigations to the petition that was filed before the committee and leading to this report today. To the team, it is one thing to receive it, it's another thing to make the recommendations that they have made in regards to this particular petition. Madam Speaker, when history is written, this young man, Kerich Hilary, who is my namesake, Kiprono, and who comes from the ward that I come from in Bomet County, will go into the right path of that history, for the reason that in the year 2011 and 12 years thereafter, leading all the way to 2021, 2022, Madam Speaker, this maize lethal necrosis disease indeed affected over 90% of the entire crop within Bomet County. It did not just affect the crop, it affected the entire livelihood of thousands and thousands of people. The decision by Kerich to file this petition and to seek for the recommendations that ultimately has come from this committee has really made me proud as a citizen of this country, particularly where it is speaking to the mainstay of the livelihoods of thousands of people. Madam Speaker, the disease did not only affect Bomet County alone. In fact, when you look at the report itself and the investigations that were conducted, it has spread over the country, including the neighboring countries. And the recommendations which have been provided for in this report, and the investigations, and in fact, the sensitization that this particular petition has brought in itself is something that is worth being lauded and appreciated. So I would equally like to appreciate the gentleman from Nyangore's ward, Hilary Kiprono Kerich, for taking this bold step. Despite the fact that he lamented in his petition of the efforts that he made prior to filing this petition, he didn't give up. He didn't surrender because he had a vision to seek to establish the root cause of this particular disease. And a description, Madam Speaker, of the condition of the maize as a crop in this particular kind of, that has been affected by this particular kind of a disease is quite worrying, especially when it took more than 10 years for it to be weeded off the shelves or for the government to be able to manage its spread and also the consequences that it has caused. Ordinarily, you would find a mature crop going for up to 2-3 meters high. In this particular case, Madam Speaker, the residents of Bomet, despite investing so much and heavily in their only mainstay, source of livelihood, that is food, source of income, and also, Madam Speaker, the only crop that they would entirely rely on would only pick up to a certain stage, which stage would be barely a meter away, turns yellow, and stagnates from that point. It could affect the rest of the intercrops that is within it, and ultimately, there is zero harvest. Madam Speaker, when we went before the committee, because I also appeared before the committee, the interrogations that went in, including the participation of the Ministry of Agriculture, CALRO, and the relevant other government agencies, brought out the real challenge and the real effect of this particular crop, and or rather the disease. Madam Speaker, the most unfortunate thing and the sad situation about this is the fact that it has taken time, more than 10 years, for this to be out of the shelves. Further challenge has been occasioned by the inability or the unwillingness of those who are involved in the county government, because this is a devolved function. Agriculture is a devolved function, Madam Speaker, where in the absence of a commitment on the part of those who are running the county government and related agencies operating within the county government, the farmers, the residents will have no other recourse but to do what Hillary did, to file petitions before the Senate, leading to the involvement of the Committee on Agriculture to deal with this. The consequences of it, of course, Madam Speaker, went, as I've said, beyond food security, which affected not only the people of Bomet, but it went beyond the county. It is indeed something that would go to the national and the regional level. And the challenge, as I've stated in this aspect, Madam Speaker, is the absence of commitment and involvement of extension officers. The county government, in most cases, and in this case in Bomet, has got a budget that has already been set aside for purposes of this. But instead of investing in such very specific, public, and of great concern agricultural aspects, the funds goes into great waste in what we have now made it as a devolved corruption. And this is one of the reasons why Hillary decided to appear before the Senate. Madam Speaker, on the day that this gentleman appeared, that is in the year 2023, September, that was almost 11 years after the discovery of this particular disease. And the consequences of that appearance, the appearance of the principal secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, and the aspects that they raised to have been the decision the government at the national level took to support on, in the control of the spread of this disease, and also to extend the supervision of the extension officers who ordinarily are expected to support the farmers and all those who are involved in dealing with this situation, is one of the interventions that the government indeed at the national level decided to do. This one was aimed at ensuring that there is reduction in the extension and the spread of the disease for the future, and also to support the farmers in order to ensure that they get appropriate seedlings which are either disease resistant or indeed a different variety that would help the farmer to ensure that they harvest the crop. In other words, there was also a request which in the petition came as a recommendation that farmers should be encouraged to ensure that they also diversify in having other varieties of the crop, and also expand to ensure that they, in some instances, take crop insurance that will support them to mitigate the losses. But, Madam Speaker, the major gain out of this particular petition is the recommendation that was made. Among them are, of course, the fact that instead of just dealing with the maize as a crop, whether cash or by definition the mainstay of the farmer, they were encouraged that they should be able to have other varieties that are resistant, and also ensure that they participate fully in terms of the engagement by the extension officers, so that we're able to educate them on what to do. We're able to have extension services get to the farmers. And this was done by a team that was set up by the Ministry of Agriculture, where a multi-sectoral team was picked up to deal with this menace. And, Madam Speaker, as we speak right now, though we still have got this challenge, we still have got the disease, though in some scattered situations or places, the farmer, as we speak right now, have had the latest, should be last year actually, when we had the first harvest of this crop with limited effects of this disease, meaning it's being phased out over time, courtesy of the interventions that were done. And in this instance, the interventions that the Ministry of Agriculture, in conjunction with CALRO and other related entities, have participated to support the farmer. Madam Speaker, this could not have happened had it not been for this particular petition. This could not have happened had it not been for Hillary to take it upon himself to create an attention in the context of the disease that has affected farmers. Part of what has happened is also public barazas that the Ministry of Agriculture has done across the 75 divisions in the county, leading to farmers appreciating also planting other varieties or other crops which are alternative to the farmers, particularly in Chepalungu constituency, Madam Speaker, where I come from. Instead of maize, farmers were encouraged to do potatoes, to do sweet potatoes, and such other subsistence crops, which it would not have happened had it not been for this particular petition. There has been also, as a consequence of this petition, a lot of mass communication, or rather mass media, public awareness, and creation of incidences of farmers being informed on what they are supposed to do for purposes of training. The greatest cause of this, Madam Speaker, I believe, was the rampant fake seedlings or seeds that was applied to the farmers. And the most unfortunate situation is, how did it take a government to run for a period of 10 years plus before such is phased out of the market? Nonetheless, Madam Speaker, one of the requests which the petitioner sought is the compensation. It is quite sad that in the year 2012, the government set out a rejection of a request for compensation on the basis of lack of a policy in compensating farmers. I believe the proposed bill that is to be sponsored by the Honorable Senator from Narok, my neighbor, Senator Okina Olekina, will set up a regulation, an enactment in that particular bill on the compensation to farmers, where if farmers are made to lose in their harvest or investment in agriculture, courtesy of such fake seedlings or even inability on the part of the government to create interventions in good time, farmers are entitled to. And I believe that in the context of the recommendation that has been made by the committee on the petition filed, the demand for compensation is still alive, and I believe that in the fullness of time, the farmers who sought for compensation, having suffered for that period of time, for want of government intervention, will ultimately be entitled to that compensation. And as I end, Madam Speaker, once again, I want to appreciate the contribution by the members. I want to appreciate the members of the Agriculture Committee who went out of their way. I only wish that they had visited this particular county to have specific experience on the type of, or rather the situation that the farmers were going through on the investment that they had made. And in the absence of that visit, Madam Speaker, they still went ahead and have submitted before the House a report that I wish, as we discussed earlier on in the Liaison Committee, that though the Senate do not have an implementation committee, we need to have a consideration of creating the Liaison Committee, comprising of chairpersons of all the committees, as an implementation committee, so that such reports, which are very relevant and core to the lowest level of the representation that we have in this House, get to be implemented in order to ensure that farmers or any other person who has been affected by such mishaps in the course of government administration are compensated for the losses that they have incurred. Madam Speaker, I support this petition, and once again to Hillary, I say proceed to fight for the interest of the farmer and of those who are unable to get to the place that you took this petition to. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kajwang.
Do I go there? Thank you. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support this report of the Agriculture Committee, which is a response to the petition that was lodged in the Senate by Kerich Kiprono Hillary on the 12th of June 2023. Madam Speaker, I have noted some procedural innovation, which I'm happy about. Previously, when committees had a report responding to a petitioner, the report would just be laid, and that would be the end of it. There could just be some general comments, and that would be the end of it. And I'm happy that now the House has innovated, that when there is a petition or a report on a petition, it is brought to this House as a motion for the House to adopt it. That gives it further effect, because previously the committee would just respond to the petitioner without any resolution of the House. I think this is a very good innovation. Madam Speaker, I also note that petitions are meant to be resolved within a period of 60 to 90 days max with extension. This petition has taken some time, but I'm happy that the committee has come back with a report, and in its conclusion, the committee has given very clear action that should be undertaken by the Ministry for Agriculture and Livestock and the county government of Bomet to respond to the prayers that were put to the Senate by Kerich Kiprono Hillary. Again, because these are innovations, Madam Speaker, how I wish that this report would have a matrix so that we know specifically what the Ministry of Agriculture should do and what the county government of Bomet should do. Agriculture is a shared concurrent function between national and county governments, and so if you do not assign clear responsibility, you end up with a situation where everyone assumes someone else is doing something and end up doing nothing. But all in all, Madam Speaker, this is good that we have responded and we have directed the Ministry of Agriculture to establish programs to ensure that there's financial assistance to the farmers who lost their crop. For example, in 2012, there's a 90% crop failure as a result of the maize lethal necrosis disease. Madam Speaker, there is something happening in county governments that this Senate must address. At the onset of devolution, we had farmers' training colleges across the country. I had a farmers' training college in my county, in Hobart Bay. And then, when this ambition and thirst for universities came, we converted the FTC to a university, the Tom Mboya University. A beautiful institution, very good infrastructure, and I believe it shall be the host for the next devolution conference. But then we didn't provide an alternative to training of farmers. If today, Madam Speaker, you are to ask the senator from Bungoma, Senator Wakoli, to make for you a dish called lasagna, he won't make it. He does not even know what it is. He has no idea how it looks like. Of course, if you told him to make ugali, he would make it, because he has seen ugali being made. And perhaps his mother taught him how to make ugali. And if the mother didn't, he taught himself how to make ugali at campus, because comrades would know how to take care of themselves. The reason why I'm giving this illustration is that if someone does not teach you how to make lasagna, you will probably never know how to make lasagna. If someone does not teach you crop husbandry, Madam Speaker, you'll fumble, and you'll probably not know how to undertake proper crop or animal husbandry. Our children, the ones we are living with here in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, I told my son some time back that, in a morning like this, I would have already gone to the farm to weed, I would have already come back and milked the cows, and I would have taken the donkeys to the lake to fetch water. And he told me, but Daddy, I can't do those things because we don't have a donkey, we don't have a cow, and we don't have a farm. And so if you expect our children to understand crop husbandry or animal husbandry without teaching them, then we'll be expecting too much. The future of agriculture is bleak in this country because we have killed the units, the colleges, the places where someone who comes from a fish breeding area could go there and learn how coffee is grown. Madam Speaker, you cannot know how to take care of a cow if you are not taught. The natural instinct that God gave humans is how to take care of a human being. Not how to take care of a cow, not how to take care of a calf, not how to milk, not how to feed a cow. We must bring back our farmers' training colleges. And they must not be seen as places for retirees. That once someone has retired in Nairobi, then they go to a farmers' training college so that they can start a poultry project, which then collapses once their pension runs out. It should target young people. Madam Speaker, the fishermen in my area are still using traditional hunting and gathering techniques. They are investing nothing in the lake, but expecting that at the end of the day, they are going to have a full catch. It has been like that for thousands of years, for millions of years, Madam Speaker. That has been how humanity has approached the issue of fishing. They believe that God has put fish in the lake and in the rivers and in the streams, and our job is to go there with a hook and catch. But recently, an American investor called Victory Farms came with cage fish farming, putting cages in the lake that we have had for millions of years, putting fish in those cages in the lake, and giving them food and controlling the environment in which they thrive. Today, Victory Farms is generating 5 billion Kenya shillings gross revenue in a year in a far corner of Suba. Almost the same revenue that the county government of Homa Bay has at its disposal. Why? Because they brought in innovation, they brought in science, they brought in technology, they brought in people who had been taken to school to study fish, how fish breeds, how fish grows, and how fish can be taken care of. We must bring back farmers' training colleges. Planting of maize is not just something you wake up and do. In my community, we would, of course, plow the fields with oxen plows. That in itself is an art. To be able to manage 6 cows tethered on a yoke, pulling one plow, and to be able to do that with straight lines, with straight lines for acres upon acres, those were traditional techniques which I don't know who will teach them. Perhaps mechanization has made that obsolete. But Madam Speaker, when I go to the village, I am told that the farms that were tilled using tractors, compared to the farms that were tilled using oxen, The farms tilled using tractors, the tractors tend to turn the soil too deep. And as a result, it brings up certain pests that are buried further down. And our people have got very interesting knowledge. They will tell you this farm was plowed using a tractor, this farm was plowed using an ox. Now, the skills on oxen plowing is virtually dead, and I don't think it used to be taught in farmers' training colleges. Now, after you have plowed your farm, Madam Speaker, we would then plant seed, and that seed would not come from a shop. The seed would be the residue from the last harvest. And what our people would do is that if you got a good crop, you'd choose the biggest corns or the biggest ears of maize, and then you'd dry it, and then you'd put ash on it, and then you'd stick it on the roof, and it was a grass-thatched roof, particularly where there's a kitchen, so that for the entire year the smoke would billow, and that seed would harden, and it would not be attacked by weevils or any other pests, so that the next season you could plant it. Madam Speaker, there are now innovations, there are now seed that can grow in different areas, but our people do not have the knowledge because they do not have access to farming, training, and innovations that they are supposed to get through the county governments. Once you have planted the seed, you come back to weed your farm, and you find your farm has got a beautiful purple foliage of a weed called striga. Madam Speaker, there is no other weed that is as beautiful but as damaging. The striga weed, just like the maize lethal necrosis disease that we're discussing right now, it affects Bomet, it affects Homa Bay. But one other big pest that we have to contend with in our regions is that very beautiful purple flower. When you're driving past or when you're passing a farm, you'd be amazed. This is a beautiful farm, very beautiful purple flowers. But that is the biggest pest that we have to contend with. Madam Speaker, for some time, ICIPE, the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, based in Mbita Town in Homa Bay County, tried to help farmers to deal with the striga menace. Of course, the only solution that seems to work so far is for farmers to pull out the striga at an early age. And striga, the seed propagates through the roots. So if you don't pull it out, if you don't pull out the entire thing from the roots, then it continues to propagate. In fact, a field that has been plowed using a tractor, because the striga weeds, the seeds go very deep. Our people are saying that when you use a tractor, then it brings up the seeds, and then you've got a beautiful purple foliage of a pest. Now, our people didn't know how to deal with striga, and it really stunts maize, and I think it would affect production by more than 60%. It also drives up the cost of producing an acre, because you have to weed not just once, you have to weed twice. And yet there are they called these things for killing weeds in farms? I'm not sure whether they are caricides or they're called herbicides. Madam Speaker, our people don't know how to use herbicides. They can't imagine that there's something that you can spray in your farm to kill herbs and to preserve the maize. They can only do that through demonstration farms and through training. They also don't know that you can use fertilizer, because naturally our soil is fertile. But someone should demonstrate to them that when you use fertilizer, then your production goes higher. All the way through the chain, Madam Speaker, including harvesting. You harvest your maize, you take it to the market, then you are told it has got aflatoxin. And Madam Speaker, as a person who grew up in the village going through these processes, I can tell you I do not know how aflatoxin looks like. I don't know whether anyone in this house can look at maize and say this one has got aflatoxin and this one does not have aflatoxin visually. Because we would harvest and would gather everything, put them on donkey-drawn carriages, put them in a granary, leave them in a granary, put some little ash on them so that they can survive to the next harvest. But then when you take your maize to the farm, you're told it has aflatoxin. Can someone come and teach us how aflatoxin looks like? Can someone come and tell us what to do with our soil? Because we hear that aflatoxin comes from the soil. What should we do so that that aflatoxin does not get into the maize, so that our maize can go to the market? Madam Speaker, 10 years, FTCs have died. We must now push for the revival of the FTCs. And when we'll be coming to Homa Bay, if you're doing the devolution conference at Tomboya University College, let's remember that that was a farmers training college. And for the benefit of farmers in Bomet and in other counties, let's push. If each county cannot do an FTC, let us then have regional centers of excellence where our farmers can be taught what to do. We passed a law in this house called the Warehouse Receipt System. We've got a Warehouse Receipt Systems Council in this country. The Warehouse Receipt System, Madam Speaker, was supposed to move maize farmers from peasant subsistence farmers to people who could use their produce as collateral. You go harvest your maize, you have been trained how to tell whether it has aflatoxin or not, you take it to warehouse, a certified warehouse, you keep your 100 bags of maize in that certified warehouse, and you are given a warehouse receipt. And with that warehouse receipt, your child should never be sent away from school because it is as good as cash. To what extent have our farmers understood that concept? Or is it just the big millers, the big farmers, who are taking advantage of that situation, taking advantage of good storage facilities offered by the National Cereal and Produce Board? Because I believe that they are one of the registered warehouses where you can make your depository of crop and get a warehouse receipt. Perhaps, and since I sit with Senator Wakoli in the Agriculture Committee, it is time for this House to query to what extent has a warehouse receipt system been adopted in this country? What is the level of understanding or appreciation of our farmers? Because, Madam Speaker, maize farmers walk around as if they're the poorest people. And we can only fix that by bringing them back to the cash economy. Madam Speaker, as I finalize, because this is a petition and already the committee has given directives, for me, my only emphasis is let's help our farmers to get the best practice, best science, best innovations that can help them to do agriculture, not just as a hobby, but to do agriculture as a cash and economically empowering activity. And let us also push the Ministry of Agriculture. Madam Speaker, we don't have a clear agricultural sector strategy in this country. When Mwai Kibaki took over, we had the strategy for revitalization of agriculture. Through the strategy for revitalization of agriculture, we collapsed all the many parastatals and put up one thing called the Agriculture, Food, Fisheries Authority. 10 years later, from AFA, we have divested fishery. From AFA, we have divested livestock. We have divested tea. We have divested coffee. We have divested milk. We have reversed everything that the Kibaki government put forth because that was what was going to help us realize Vision 2030. Today, we don't have a coherent plan. The last one was called Agricultural Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy that was launched by either Munya or Linturi. The current CS for Agriculture should come to this House and tell us what is the overarching agricultural sector strategy and how it fits into the Vision 2030 so that we can ensure that our farmers are not just beggars, that our farmers, particularly those who are women and youth, can also be part of the cash economy. Madam Speaker, with that, I support. Thank you.
Senator Mundigi.
Asanti Mbi Spika kwa kunipa ruhusa niweze kuchangia mjadala ambayo unaendelea wa kamati ya kilimo ambaye mimi mwenyekiti mdogo wa hiyo kamati. Mbi Spika, yangu ni kusema katika Kenya kaunti ya 47 kilimo ndio mstari wa kwanza, na katika Kenya chakula ile muhimu ni mambo ya ugali ambaye inatokana na mahindi na pia mambo ya mchele. Bwana Speaker, tukifuatilia na mambo hiyo yote inatokana na mambo ya kilimo, na kama kuna kitu imewachwa mstari wa mwisho haiwekwi kipaumbele ni mambo ya kilimo na sua ya mahindi na mchele, kwa sababu yale tunachambua hapa imeendelea kwa kipindi ya mwaka 11, miaka 12. Ni mambo ya ajabu kwa sababu miaka mingi tumekuwa tukichambua mambo ya kilimo, kwa sababu tunajua mambo ya kilimo Mr. Speaker, tunajua mfanyikazi aidha ni mkubwa ama ni mdogo, ama ni waziri ama si waziri, aidha ni mtoto wa shule ama si mtoto wa shule. Siku hizi kilimo tunakiweka kipaumbele, kwa sababu hata vijana wetu wakikosa kazi tunaelimisha Mr. Speaker waende kuangalia mambo ya kilimo. Mr. Speaker, tunaongea kilimo ya mahindi ambayo iko Bomet, vile tuliona mambo inaendelea. Mr. Speaker, nikumbusha seneti wakati wa zamani, wakati Rais Moi alikuwa anaongoza, tunakumbuka vizuri kulikuwa na mambo ya wale watu extension agricultural officers ambaye walikuwa nafunza watu mambo ya monyoko wa udongo, na pia Mr. Speaker, mambo ya kupanda miti na pia usimbanji wa mitaro. Mr. Speaker, mambo ya kilimo katika wakati huu imekuwa na shinda. Na ninakumbuka vizuri Mr. Speaker, kama tunaweza kusikilia mambo ya kilimo Mr. Speaker, tunaweza kuwa tunakaa vizuri, kwa sababu kama mtu akikosa chakula, akikosa msaada Mr. Speaker, na awe na pesa yake hata kidogo, nakumbuka wakati tulichaguliwa mwaka wa kipindi 2022 kulikuwa na janga la njaa, lakini Mungu akasaidia Mr. Speaker na mvua ikanyesha, na tulikumbuka tulikuta unga wa mahindi kilo 2 ikitoka shilingi 210. Mr. Speaker, wakati mvua ilinyesha na kilimo ikawa nzuri, kwa sababu Mungu alipatiana mvua, ilikuwa kama saa hii inatoka shilingi 130. Mr. Speaker, kama Mungu alitusaidia, kama watu wa serikali upande wa agriculture, kama wangetusaidia ile mambo inafaa, kama ya mbegu nzuri, mambo ya mbegu, mambo ya usimbanji wa dams na kila kitu Mr. Speaker, upande wa kilimo ya mahindi hatungesikia hiyo mambo imefanyika katika hiyo county. Mr. Speaker, tunaweza kuchangia tukisema ni county moja ya Bomet. Mr. Speaker, tunajua sio county moja ya Bomet, ni county nyingi. Ni vile Mr. Speaker, ile senator aliona kwao hiyo mambo inaendelea na mambo mingi watu wameifunikia na wakuweza kuangalia kutaendeaje. Kwa Mr. Speaker, naunga mkono vile kamati ya agriculture ambaye mimi mwenyekiti mdogo vile tulichambua hiyo maneno na tukasema wale watu waweze kusaidiwa. Ndio Mr. Speaker, watu wengi wamekuwa kinena, kumekuwa hata saa nyingine Mr. Speaker, upande wa agriculture watu waambiwa waweke bima ya insurance, lakini Mr. Speaker, hakuna mtu yoyote huwa na gari upenda kuweka insurance yalipwe pesa. Mr. Speaker, hata mambo ya kilimo hakuna mtu angetaka kuweka bima aweze kupata pesa. Kwa Mr. Speaker, ningeomba serikali ambayo inatuongoza ya Kenya Kwanza iweke kipaumbele mambo ya kilimo ya hii tunachangia mambo ya mahindi Mr. Speaker. Nikichambua vizuri Mr. Speaker, nikisema kama upande mchele unalimwa kama kaunti ya Kirinyaga na kaunti zile zingine, ukienda pale Mr. Speaker, saa hii kaunti ya Kirinyaga wandundu wale wako pale ni wengi sana, na Mr. Speaker, saa ile kule kuna watu wanaitwa agricultural officers, lakini Mr. Speaker, wameshindwa na ile wandundu ambaye wako kule, unakuta ile ukulima wa mambo ya Mr. Speaker ya mchele imelete sinda. Mr. Speaker, sio peke yake huko, hata huko Kisumu na kila kona sote. Kwa hivyo Mr. Speaker, mpaka tuongee vile mkulima ataweza kusaidiwa, kwa sababu katika serikali ya Kenya Kwanza agenda yao ya kwanza ni mambo ya kilimo, ni mambo ya afya, ni mambo ya parapara na mambo ya elimu. Mr. Speaker, hiyo mambo yote mpaka tuilete pamoja, au watu wote hiyo wizara iweze kuangaliwa njia ile inafaa. Mr. Speaker, nikisema mambo ya kilimo katika Embu County, ukienda tunaongea mambo ya majani Mr. Speaker, tunaongea mambo ya kahawa, tunaongea mambo ya maembe. Unakuta Mr. Speaker, hata maembe iko na shinda na hiyo iko pamoja na kilimo. Unakuta iko na wandundu, unakuta watu wanalima, lakini unakuta wakati waenda kuvuna wanafuna maembe ile haifai na ile maembe mbaya. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, mambo ya kilimo tukiangalia, tunataka tuangalie sio kaunti moja, tunafaa tuangalie katika kaunti 47. Mr. Speaker, nikiwa senator ambaye wa Embu County, nakumbuka ile kaunti ya Embu, Mr. Speaker, katika upande wa Mbeere South na Mbeere North. Mr. Speaker, huko kilimo yetu ni mambo ya kitu inaitwa murasitu muguka, na unajua iko katika crop act. Mr. Speaker, unakuta hata ile kilimo ya murasitu muguka, Mr. Speaker, hainjaangaliwa vizuri. Unakuta hata ndawa, Mr. Speaker, wizara ya kilimo hainjaangalia watu wataweza kuisaidia mna gani ndio kilimo yao iweze kuendelea vizuri. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, mambo mingi katika wizara ya kilimo, serikali iweze kuangalia wale wasomi vizuri ambaye waangalia mambo ya kilimo vizuri, ndio kama kaunti zetu zote siwe kitu ya kwanza iwe na maji kama ndamsile kubwa ya kupeleka maji kwa wale watu wanalima, iwe na pia water pan na pia boho na pia kushika maji, kwa sababu kama sasa Mr. Speaker, saa hii mvua inaenda kunyesha, unakuta saa hii janga la njaa inaonekana kwa sababu hakuna maji na hakuna Mr. Speaker mambo ya storage ya kuweka maji. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, tukiongea mambo ya vitu zile zingine zote pamoja na zile zingine, kilimo ni ya njia nyingi. Tunataka Mr. Speaker, kwa sababu tunajua kilimo iko katika kaunti ya 47 na iko katika devolution. Sisi tukiwa maseneta, ningeomba kuonekane kama kunaweza kuwa wakati wa budget, Mr. Speaker, kama Mr. Speaker kutakuwa na pesa imetangwa, wakati kumeonekana mimea yetu Mr. Speaker imeleta shinda, unakuta senators itakuwa na ile hela inaweza kupitisha wakulima wakipata shinda waweze kusaidiwa. Kwa sababu Mr. Speaker, mambo ya mbegu zote unakuta wale watu company ya Sind inapeana mbegu mbaya, hata mahindi, hata maharagwe na vitu zile zingine. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, mpaka tujiandae wakati huu, unakuta Senate ni hapa house iweze kuangalia vile itasaidia mkulima. Sio mambo ya ukulima peke yake Mr. Speaker, hata mambo ya mazao yetu bali tutaweza kuuza katika nchi zile zingine. Kama sasa nakumbuka Mr. Speaker, mambo ya kilimo ya mbuzi na ng'ombe, juzi tu serikali ilikuwa inaonelea vizuri iwe ng'ombe na mbuzi sikindungwa sindano juu ya biashara yetu, ndio sile nyama wale watu wa Northeastern wao wakiuza kule nchi za ng'ambo. Mr. Speaker, yende ikawa hiyo mambo haikuwa mbaya, lakini kwa sababu hakukuwa na mambo ya public participation, ningeomba Mr. Speaker, mambo mingi, kwa sababu siku hizi tuko katika nchi ya demokrasia Mr. Speaker, mambo mingi ikifanyika kuwe na mambo ya public participation, ndio mkulima ama mwananchi au akiwa anaendelea anajua nini anaendelea. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, ningeomba watu wengi kama kaunti ya Embu iweze kusaidiwa mambo mingi na maji ya mboo na ndamu na zile vitu zingine na pia na ndawa. Na pia Mr. Speaker, ningeomba kufanywa research wale agricultural officers wakienda Embu ile mrasi tokomuka iende ikawa ile tumefanya research kidogo inaweza kuwa wakati moja itatengeneza juice na wine na mbigiji na pia inaweza kutoka hata ndawa. Kwa hiyo ningeomba Mr. Speaker, mambo ya agriculture tuweke kipaumbele, ndio mkulima aidha ni wa aina gani, kitu yote ifanywe research iweze kuonekana itasaidia Mkenya namna gani. Pia Mr. Speaker, after hiyo mambo yote kufanyika, ningeomba serikali iweze kutusaidia mambo ya mazao yetu, tukiuza kule nchi za ng'ambo tuuze na njia ile nafaa. Kama unakuta Mr. Speaker, tunakumbuka miezi 3 imeisha Mr. Speaker, mambo ya kitu inaitwa makandamia imeleta shinda. Wakati tulichaguliwa ilikuwa toka shilingi 30 per kilo, lakini Mr. Speaker, sisi ma senators na agriculture tukakaa pamoja tukaona ikaendelea ikakuja shilingi Mr. Speaker shilingi 130. Lakini wakati kulisemekana Mr. Speaker yende ikawa kwa kipindi ya miaka 3 Mr. Speaker, mambo ya makandamia watu wengi watakuwa merima na itakuwa inauzwa huko nje ya ng'ambo. Mr. Speaker, ningeomba watu wafunzwe vizuri, ifanywe public participation, waambie ni kwa nini haitakuwa nanuliwa, ndio mkulima awache kulia, kwa sababu kuna shinda mambo pia ya makandamia na tunajua kaunti nyingi inalima vitu inaitwa makandamia. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, mimi nikiwa mwenyekiti mdogo wa hii kamati ya agriculture naunga hiyo mjadala mkono, na nikimalizia ningeomba kila mbegu ya aina yote kuonekane kama kuna mbegu ile haitakuwa inakaa kwa muda mrefu. Kwa hiyo Mr. Speaker, mimi nikiwa Central Embu County naunga mkono. Mimi ni Daktari Alexander Mundigi. Asante bwana, asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fonyeri, Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was actually quite worried that my colleague from Embu will take all the time. Madam Speaker, I do proudly sit in the Agricultural Committee, and I'm happy that I'll be sitting there with you, with our able chairman, Senator for Bungoma. Madam Speaker, agriculture is the backbone of our economy. I do come from a county, Nyeri County, a land of many opportunities that lies between two water towers, endowed with the richness of coffee, one of the best, endowed with the richness of tea. We have the best producers in Nyeri. But equally, Madam Speaker, we also do maize growing as staple food. However, the practice that we've continued to have in our style and technology of farming has remained the same over the last couple of decades. I do recall, and vividly so, Madam Speaker, that indeed, when I was going to the farm with my grandmother, the technology that we used of plow and plant, the harvesting, the post-harvest management of the crop has remained pretty much the same. However, Madam Speaker, we are all aware that the environment, the climate, and the global warming has contributed to quite many factors that have affected our farm produce negatively. Therefore, Madam Speaker, it is imperative that given the changing times, given the changing technologies, that we must leverage the available technology to ensure that we do not only get the best seeds, but we also have the best management of some of the pests and diseases that affect our crops. Madam Speaker, as a member of the Agricultural Committee, I've had an opportunity to visit a number of countries across the globe, and I've had the opportunity also to see some of the best practices. Some of these pests, some of these diseases, Madam Speaker, they can be controlled using biotechnology that's available. We know some of these main diseases, and indeed all the crop diseases, can be modified in a way that they are not going to affect our crops. It is also not lost to us, Madam Speaker, that Kenya used to be one of the leading countries in this part of the world in terms of agricultural technology. I do recall when JQuat was being financed by JICA, one of the informing factors, Madam Speaker, was to make it a hub to produce agro-engineers who will be able to steer this country into ensuring that we have food security. Madam Speaker, the entrance of devolution after the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution brought a lot of good tidings to the Kenyans. But with it also came a lot of misfortune. One of them being that we devolved, and rightfully so, Madam Speaker, agriculture, but instead of institutionalizing some of these institutes, like research centers, because some of the counties that we have in this country, Madam Speaker, are too small not to be able to afford to have the technology that they would need to do the research. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is imperative that we will leverage the institutions of higher learning that we have in this country, and we make sure that we bring all the stakeholders together, be it the county government, the farmers and research institutions, so that we can be able to mobilize resources, pull resources together, so that some of this research that needs a lot of resources, needs a lot of advanced knowledge and technology can be done. Madam Speaker, when we brought in devolution, field extension officers, which were during our times very many and all over, some county governments could not afford to finance them. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we used to have cattle dips, we used to have research centers, we used to have people who used to visit the farms and work with the farmers. We used to have demonstration farms that could show the farmers some of the best practices. And we had localized kind of research that could tell this breed of maize, potato, or even coffee is doing good in this area. Madam Speaker,
It may surprise you that the last time we came with a crop variety, the Loiro 11 of coffee, was way back in the 90s. Since that time, Madam Speaker, we've stagnated because we decided to devolve, and with it we devolved everything, and the budget that followed those functions was not devolved. This is where the rain started beating us, Madam Speaker. As we were interrogating this issue of the maize crop in Bomet, it was not lost to us, Madam Speaker. This is a problem that has continued to face many farmers, be it the coffee farmers, be it the tea farmers, even daily farming, Madam Speaker. We continue to face adverse movements of prices because of the global challenge that we have. The competition, and most of from the Latin American, Madam Speaker. The competition that we have from our neighboring countries, the Ethiopian. The competition that we have from our neighboring country down here, the Tanzanians, have given us not only land for our money, but have made most of the crops that we grow in Kenyan soil uncompetitive. I'm glad to say, Madam Speaker, that for the first time, we have a government that's quite intentional in reviving agripreneur, that is very intentional in empowering the farmers, and these can be evidenced and seen by the fact that this government is providing subsidized fertilizers that is accessible to all the farmers. However, Madam Speaker, it is not done by just supplying subsidized fertilizers. We must, and now that we have a population that's getting ever younger, we must come up with incentives that will make the younger generation see agribusiness as an opportunity. And I'm happy to say, Madam Speaker, more and more we are seeing younger people engaging themselves in farming and coming with coping this with the modern technology, and they are able to make good returns in this. Madam Speaker, if we have to sustain ourselves in terms of food, we must embrace the current technologies, we must embrace the best of practices in farming, but most importantly, Madam Speaker, we must ensure that farmers are provided with the light seeds. A light seed, Madam Speaker, would mean that it will be able to adapt to the climatic condition, it will be able to withstand the pests, and it will be able to withstand the diseases that can affect it. This, Madam Speaker, is no longer rocket science. Today, with biotechnology, it has become possible to eliminate threats in the genetic formation of a seed so that some of the diseases will not occur. However, Madam Speaker, that some of this sector has been held captive by some cartels. This remains a major challenge. Madam Speaker, I would want to challenge every one of us. I would want to tell every member of this Senate, it is the high time that we divorce ourselves from this sectionalism in politics and let's look at the challenges that this country is facing and ask ourselves a valid and genuine question: where do we want to see this country in the next 30 years? The decision that we make today, Madam Speaker, the decisions that are implemented today in the agricultural sector, and I'm happy that I sit in the Agricultural Committee where we are able to fundamentally engage and change some of the approaches and practices that we have so that we can make agriculture not just agriculture for subsistence, but as a main income earner. Madam Speaker, it has been mentioned, sometimes back the price of macadamia had collapsed. We were able, as the Agricultural Committee, engaging with the relevant authorities, we were able to ensure that the prices were stabilized. However, Madam Speaker, I would want to say from my personal research in some of the major consumers in the Asian countries, in the Indonesian country, macadamia still remains a very, very good crop if managed properly. However, Madam Speaker, the biggest challenge that we have in this country is at times we lack a strategic approach in the way of we sell our crops, and most importantly, in the way that we manage the bumper harvest that happens to come across the country, and therefore the farmers end up losing from the drop in prices. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I would want to commend the petitioner who brought up this petition. I would want to commend the committee that I sit in, because this should be a journey that will open doors for many other approaches that we should have. And as we're doing that, Madam Speaker, we would ask ourselves one fundamental question. The organizations we have that are supposed to be doing research, How well funded are they? How functional are they? How well do they work with other institutions of higher learning? Do they just import technology, or do they implement homegrown technology that will suit Kenyans? Madam Speaker, it is important to underline that the funding that's given to research institutions at times falls too short, that they are not able to do any meaningful change. And if we have to harvest the products of good research, then we must also be prepared to invest in it properly. As I wind up, Madam Speaker, let me say that it is very, very, very important that we realize that agriculture is not only important to provide us with food security, but it could be one of the answers that we are looking for to ensure that we create meaningful employment. But it should not stop just by growing the crops. It should not stop by just harvesting the crop. It should go on and say we must do value addition, and we must therefore interrogate along the value chain, Madam Speaker, where can we be able to start opportunities, to create opportunities for the younger generation, which is attractive enough for them, which is able to earn them enough income, but most importantly, ensure that we produce products that are processed and value added in a way that they become competitive in the foreign market. Madam Speaker, the world is becoming a global village, and therefore, the crops that are produced in Kenya, the same are produced in Peru, the same are produced in Brazil. How do we then make our products more competitive? Madam Speaker, if you go into a supermarket in Tokyo, you'll buy a packet of macadamia. Just by the way it is packaged, Madam Speaker, you'll have a feeling that this is more variable. Only for you to read the packaging and see that that is a product of Kenya, but it was exported, processed, and then packaged there. It is the high time now that we start leveraging the technology that is available so that we can ensure that our products get maximum profit and they are able to compete globally. As we do that, Madam Speaker, it must never be lost to us. The potential that we have as a country does not only lie in the Western countries, but within the African region. Madam Speaker, just the other day I was in Angola, and I realized the potential we have to sell our dairy product there is quite enormous. I was in Ghana, and I saw that the potential that we have to sell our Kenyan tea there is quite enormous. What we need to do, Madam Speaker, is to divorce ourselves from this being dependent on the dollar, because I keep on asking myself, why does Kenya need to have dollars to be able to trade with Uganda? Why do we need to have dollars to be able to trade with Tanzania? It is the high time now, within the East African region, within the SADC, within the Great Lakes region, that we come up with a mechanism that will enable us to trade without over-relying on the foreign exchange, the hard currencies, the so-called dollars, because by so doing, we limit our opportunities, we make ourselves very, very vulnerable to external shocks, because the shortage of dollar in the American market will mean that it will affect our economy directly. As I wind up, Madam Speaker, I would want to challenge us all. It is the high time now we divorce ourselves from the toxic politics that we've been pushing and say that we must integrate this country in a way that will be able to trade with our neighbors, that will be able to ensure that the products that are produced in this country are not only competitive regionally, but also globally. And Madam Speaker, that is why I'm saying we must ensure that of the younger generation, the Gen Zs of this country, start embracing the new idea of agripreneur, which is leveraging the current technology with the trades across the globe. Madam Speaker, because I'm looking at the watch there, I might not be able to finish what I wanted to contribute to, but I can see I still have a couple of minutes to go, and I can say, Madam Speaker, as we talk about advancing our agriculture, as we talk about creating industries, as we talk about creating opportunities for our young people, let us invest in their education so that they'll be able to work on the research, so that they'll be able to come with new varieties, they'll be able to come with yields and crops that will withstand the climatic conditions. It must never be lost to us, Madam Speaker, that the kind of climatic conditions we had 20 years ago, the kind of pests that we had 20 years ago, they have genetically modified themselves and therefore made themselves more resistant to some of the pesticides that we use. And therefore, this is the high time that we say, why don't we leverage